The city of Ravenfort was built at the base of a rugged mountain called Raven Mountain and was truly a contemporary wonder. Its charm was matched by the backdrop of lush fields of grass and endless forests which had helped shape the city into what it is today. The trade resources these fields and forests brought were of great importance. Still, they were also influential when it came to architectural designs, as the vast majority of buildings have been built with an abundance of large windows to mimic the openness of fields. The skyline was riddled with peculiar buildings and their beauty was only matched by each other. Parks and gardens were flourishing in Ravenfort, attracting a lot of attention. So many dukes and noble families had left their mark on Ravenfort. But only one man changed the city into a buzzing neon city of Kingdom Dawnguard. Where the heck am I now? Unlike in Etheria, Michael was thrown into an open street as he floated above the middle of the street. He looked around and was truly astonished by sight. For a few moments, he was baffled by the sight. The place in his sight looked like something directly pulled out from an anime and sprinkled with neon lights to make it look like a fantasy medievalish Vegas. The street was buzzing with people in fancy clothes. The neon signs and the decoration each building had coupled with the starry sky gave off a quiet charm. Anyone would want to lose themselves in the city without a second thought. Michael could count several casinos, restaurants, theaters, and, surprisingly, strip clubs. It's definitely his work. Michael shook his head, chuckling. Michael continued to float above the crowd, aimlessly watching the streets. While roaming the streets, Michael noticed how clean the streets were. Then he looked at the raven-shaped mountain looking down at the city. Damn it. I lost 100,000 today. Dude, you know what they say. The house always wins. Michael turned his gaze towards a couple of elves walking out of a casino. The building resembled a miniature pyramid, and their shout was loud enough for many pedestrians to turn their gazes at them. I am sick of losing my astral coins in this place. The elf leading the group, who had blonde hair and pointy ears, stomped on the street. The elves looked exactly the same as the elves from Michael's universe. Except these elves had pointier ears and were taller than the humans in the streets. They also looked more dominant. Then why do you keep going to this place? There are countless casinos in Ravenfort, the elf following the angry elf said. Sigh. The elf sighed. Because they have 6 services. Especially the girls. Dang. The elf licked his lips before mingling with the crowd. Michael followed the crowd of streets towards the castle in the distance right beneath the mountain. Visit. For the best no_v_underscore_g experience, get your daily dose of news here. Newsflash. The Dark Mage has decimated Grass Grave, the school of astral magic. The royal mages are scouring the kingdom for the Dark Mage. Michael turned his head immediately towards a couple of street urchins shouting at the crowd standing on a stack of crates. The Dark Mage strikes again. Want to know about the Dark Mage? Get your daily dose of news from the #1 news provider, Newsflash. Michael saw several people, including elves, dwarves, and humans rushing toward the street urchins to get a copy of the newspaper in their hands. The Dark Mage. Michael felt curious about the Dark Mage. He wondered whether the Dark Mage and the man who crushed the queen under his boots were the same people or not. Dear God, it says the Dark Mage has killed every single disciple in the school. A human lady wearing a feather hat read the newspaper and gasped in shock. Why is he hunting the mages? Not mages. The mage schools allied with the Church of Goddess Aditi. This is the 5th school he had wiped out of existence. What the fuck is the Royal Mages and the Ministry of Warriors doing? The crowd murmured among themselves. Michael noticed every single one who talked about the Dark Mage looked pale and flustered. Look. Suddenly many of the crowd pointed at the sky as Michael looked up to see a man-of-war ship flying towards the castle in the sky. Even from a distance, the ship looked massive and threatening. Visit. For a better user experience, Michael quickly shot into the sky as he had a feeling the ship was the place he should be right now instead of listening to gossip. Only when he came closer to the ship did he realize the actual size of this beast. If the ship was put beside a cargo airplane, the latter would look smaller, let alone Michael. Since he was not in his physical form, Michael was able to pass through all the defense arrays placed on the hull and went straight through the hull. Michael followed his instincts and the environmental scanning map to reach a spacious room where Michael saw several black armored soldiers standing around a marble table. All the soldiers wore what seemed to be shiny metal black armor that perfectly fit their bodies. They were armored from toe to neck and had their black helmets and cloak on the table. They were too focused on the blueprint on the table and didn't even sense Michael looking over their shoulder. What surprised Michael was the soldiers contained all the races. He could see an elf, dwarf, half-elf, human girl, and an orc who looked 7 feet tall and had green skin. "Where is Hunter?" the elf asked the others. A few seconds later, the door to the room opened as a handsomely devilish man with striking raven black hair entered the room with 2 black swords in his hand. He was taller than an average human and had a physique that rivals Ghost himself. His shoulder-length black hair fluttered in the wind while his sword sparked fire every time he brushed them together. "Is everyone ready?" Hunter asked with a smirk. "Yes, Captain." Despite their different races, all the soldiers bowed their heads toward Hunter, who was a human. "You better be. I had enough of that vile creature. I am planning to wake up on his bed with his women beside me." Hunter devilishly grinned. His perfect jaw structure and an alluring row of perfectly set teeth made even his devilish grin look dashing. "Remember, guys, we are not sneaking up on him. That's his style. We are doing this in my style, loud and sexy. He has to know we are coming for him." Hunter cracked his neck, sheathing his swords into the sheaths on his back. "Arlen, walk us through the plan again," Hunter said to the elf. "All right, listen." The elf put his finger on the highest point of the castle. "Our inside man has already disabled the defenses around the castle and opened the roofway. So we are diving through that roof, which will lead us straight to the throne hall." The elf took a break and continued. "After we reach the throne hall, we will meet his personal guard, a group of highly trained orcs. We have information that this group contains 5 mages and 7 warriors, all at the sentinel stage." Michael listened to the elf with his arms crossed. "Ogrel, that's where you come in." The elf looked at the orc. "The moment we enter the hall, use the void crystal." The orc unzipped the pouch hanging on his waist and took out a dark crystal. The latest _sodies are on _the website. The rock put the crystal on the table and nodded as Michael saw a puff of steam coming out of the orc's nostrils. "The crystal will suppress everyone's cultivation stage to sage level except us. As long as we are wearing this," Arlen tapped his chest, "we are immune to the void crystal. 6 paladins versus a bunch of sages. I like that odds. Oh, we can massacre them in a couple of minutes." The half-elf giggled, playing with her golden hair. "What about him, our target?" Michael looked down to see a dwarf chugging a large bottle of wine down his throat. "Dude, how many times do we have to tell you? Don't drink before a mission." The half-elf shook her head disappointedly. "Especially that poison made by our target?" Arlen creased his brows as the dwarf wiped the red wine off of his long bushy beard. "Dinna judge me. After we chop off his head, who's gonna make this god's drink? Ye have to give it to him. He may be a vile evil one son o' a bitch, but he knows how to brew this heavenly wine." The dwarf kissed the glass bottle in his hand. "Just give it a taste. Hunter, here, take a sip." The dwarf extended the bottle to Hunter, but he just shook his head. "I prefer not to drink poisons, Habrit. So killing, thieving, and humping like a dog be okay, but nay drinking?" Habrit rolled his eyes. "Just ignore that short bastard and continue, Arlen." The half-elf said to the elf. "Where was I?" "At the throne hall. So after Ogrel activates the void crystal and suppresses everyone's cultivation, well, just kill them and teleport the target to our base." "What the fuck? Why canna we just chop his head off right on his very throne?" Habrit asked. "First, I kinda hate his decorations. Second, we need the king and his people to witness his death. They are waiting for us in the grand arena and I don't plan to disappoint them." Hunter grinned, and looking at his devilish grin, Michael knew he was planning something else too: visits. For the best experience, but we can make them wait a bit until we clean his treasury. I heard there are some dope shits in his castle. We can auction them for millions of astral coins. Hunter licked his lips as Michael could see his eyes sparkling. Michael couldn't help feeling pity for their target. Although Michael couldn't see their cultivation level, he could sense the overwhelming power radiating from each of them. Especially from Hunter. If Michael had to compare Hunter with a cultivator from his universe, he would say Hunter was at fusion stage. Wherever they were going, Michael was excited to see them in action. Hunter and his team equipped themselves with hidden blades, various pouches, and weapons such as swords, spears, bows, and arrows. Michael calmly watched them prepare. His gaze swept across the leading man, Hunter, who brushed his black blades together, sharpening them. The dwarf was rummaging through the contents of a wooden crate to find another bottle of wine. Meanwhile, Arlen checked the elasticity of his golden bow by pulling and releasing the string. The half-elf swung the silver spear in the air, and the orc seemed to be meditating. The rest of the three humans put on the black helmets hiding their faces. As they were preparing, the orc abruptly opened his eyes. Michael looked at the green-skinned orc taking out a jade stone from one of the ouches hanging around his waist. Despite the orc's two short tusks sticking out of his mouth and the hulking muscular size, he looked gentle and calm, unlike the rest. Ding, ding, ding. The jade stone flickered, pulsating energy blasts. "Our girl?" asked Hunter as the orc nodded. Finally, Hunter stopped sharpening his sword and walked toward the table. "Is everything ready, Monolith?" "Yes," a whisper of a girl sounded from the jade stone. "Tell me he's there?" asked Hunter. "Yes, he is there. I think he's going to hold a meeting with his minions soon." "So come faster," the girl rushed Hunter. "We are closer than you think, Monolith." "Arlen, what's our idea?" Hunter turned his gaze to the elf. 3 minutes, 3 minutes, Monolith." "Where is he now?" Hunter asked the girl who is called Monolith. Michael floated so close to the orc and the stone that he could hear the girl panting. She sounded like she had finished a heavy workout. Visits. For the best no_underscore_underscore experience, getting dressed. "Come quickly." "Shit, I have to go." The jade stone suddenly lost all its glow as Hunter sighed. "Let's go and get out, girl, back team." He cracked his neck and sheathed his swords back into the sheaths. Michael looked through the window and saw the majestic gray castle standing beneath the mighty mountain. The castle they were traveling to had 7 solid, round towers that were both a defensive and decoration aspect of the elegant castle. All 7 towers were connected by towering, narrow walls made of what seemed to be gray marble. Stylish windows scattered thinly across the walls in an asymmetric pattern, along with symmetric crenellations for archers and artillery. Michael floated towards the windows and was genuinely stunned by the forest outside the castle gates. The forest was lit up with bioluminescent creatures and trees, adding to the castle's atmosphere. After seeing the colorful bioluminescent trees, flowers, and veins in the forest, Michael understood how those neon lights were created. He looked around the castle through the window to see signs of expansion, as some parts were clearly built more recently than others. There were still many construction sites near the castle, along with stacks of gray marble stones, clay, and carriages. It was apparent whoever inhabited the castle had planned to expand it. The airship Michael was on gradually got closer to the castle. It slowly ascended higher to the point that Michael could see a glass door on the roof flanked by 4 towers. "It's showtime," Hunter cracked his fist as the wooden floor in front of them slid open. Without wasting any time, Hunter jumped through the opening, followed by the dwarf. Then, one by one, all the team members jumped out of the ship, diving towards the castle opening. "Let's see Hunter in action." At last, Michael exited the ship through the opening and followed the team. Since the ship was huge in size, all the archers in the tower noticed it. Besides, Michael could see guards patrolling the castle walls chaotically running around the place. To Michael, it seemed like the guards were caught off guard. Bush, 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 bush. While diving down, Arlen fired arrow after arrow at each archer in the tower in midair. "He's good," Michael praised the elf's archery skills. Each arrow he fired went straight through his targets' heads. Without inhuman skills, it would be impossible to hit the targets while diving through the air and facing the wind resistance. Of course, Gaia could do the same. When it comes to archery, she surpassed Michael. That didn't mean Michael was behind her in the accuracy department. What made Gaia a better archer was her talent for calculating wind resistance. Michael could easily buy an archery book and match her skills if he wanted. But for now, Michael chose not to spend badass points and decided to save them. Visits. For the best no_underscore_see experience, stop them. Why are our defenses down? What the fuck happened to the defense arrays? Michael heard the soldiers in the castle shouting in utter confusion. Soon, a line of archers rushed out of the tower and took aim at Hunter and his group. Fire! As countless arrows soared through the air, the orc closed his eyes. Solar barrage, Ogrel growled. In a blink of an eye, Michael saw a shield made of sparkling golden energy materialize in front of them. Hunter and the others quickly moved closer together and flew behind the shield as the arrows hit the shield, and the shield turned each and every arrow into a pile of ash. Flame lash. When Hunter and his group got closer to the line of archers, Habrit the dwarf cast a spell, swinging the heavy axe in his hand. Michael saw a wave of fire shooting out of Habrit's axe to the soldiers flanking the entryway into the castle. As soon as the fire wave hit the soldiers, the wave cut the soldiers in halves. Clang. When they got closer to the square entryway made of glass, Ogrel slowed down, falling behind. In contrast, Hunter just closed his fist, extended his arm, shattered through the glass, and landed directly on the throne hall. Pyro thorns. As soon as they landed on the throne hall, Ogrel waved his hand, casting a spell that created hundreds of fiery thorns on the floor. An overly loyal archer jumped through the broken entryway only to be burnt to death by the thorns made of blood-red fire. The throne hall contained polished braziers encompassing each of the 14 obsidian columns that lit up the lower levels of the throne hall and blanketed everything in a warm glow. The relatively modest chandeliers hanging from the embowed ceiling danced in the flickering light. At the same time, gargoyles and statuettes looked down upon the marble floor of this majestic hall. The cobalt rug caught on fire due to the fiery thorns sticking through them. The rug on fire ran from the throne down through the center. It split into two paths leading out, while matching black banners containing the head of a crimson-red lion with adorned tapestries draped from the walls. Between each banner stood a tall candle. All but a few had been lit and in turn illuminated the mosaics of a black-haired man below them. Visit. For a better user experience, Michael followed the burning rug and saw a towering throne made of black metal and skulls on an elevated platform. The throne was engraved with skulls and bones, making it look like it was made of hundreds of skulls and bones. The rug on fire encircled the throne, and through the flames, Michael saw a young man sitting on the throne, resting his head on his fist. Despite the chaos and the fire around him, Michael didn't see any signs of shock or fear on that young man's face. Michael lost his focus on the young man when several soldiers wearing black steampunk frock suits rushed into the throne hall. "Ogrel!" Arlen shouted as the orc quickly took out the dark crystal from his pouch and shattered the crystal on the ground. As soon as Ogrel shattered the crystal, Michael saw a dark wave blasting everyone in the throne hall except the young man on the throne. Clink. Hunter unsheathed his two swords and dashed at the guards. While looking at the soldiers who wore black steampunk frock coats, he couldn't help praising their fashion sense. Coupled with the fedora hat on their heads, they looked like the soldiers of a mafia family. But they soon lost their hats along with their heads when Hunter weeded their heads like a weed with his two swords. His fast, deadly, and precise sword work wreaked havoc among the soldiers. Flame lash. The dwarf cast the spell yet again as a lash made of fire cut the soldiers who tried to dash at them in halves. In a matter of a few seconds, Hunter had reduced the number of soldiers by half. He was a killing machine, and every time he swung his swords, he took a life or two. Every single one in Hunter's team massacred the soldiers so effortlessly. Ogrel had his hands towards the sky as Michael noticed a sliver of light shooting out of his chest and going into the floor. If he was right, the silver of light was the energy of this universe. In simple words, Michael's universe had arch energy, and Hunter's universe had astral energy. After several minutes, the hall had countless heads rolling around and headless bodies. The previously marble floor was flooded with thick blood. When the rug finished burning and the fiery thrones disappeared, there was no one in the hall but Hunter, his group, and the young man on the throne. The felling. Hunter flicked his wrist, scattering the blood on his two swords before sheathing them. Looking at the young man on the throne, Hunter cracked his neck. "You messed with the wrong Hunter, bitch. Hunter snickered as Ogrel waved his hand, swirling like a tornado. While the orc was swirling, Michael saw a golden parchment materializing in his hand. Soon, the orc tore the parchment in half as a golden light shot out of the parchment, enveloping the entire throne hall and everyone in it. The latest underscores are on website. The next moment, Michael saw a vortex opening above them and felt he was being sucked into the vortex. Then, in a few blinks of an eye, everyone in the throne hall just vanished into thin air. After being teleported from the throne hall, Hunter, his team, and Michael appeared on the open ground along with the young man on the throne. Michael quickly looked around and realized they were in an arena. His gaze swept across the fancy-dressed nobles around them in elevated seating until he saw a group of people watching Hunter and his group sitting on the VIP seatings. The nobles gasped in shock when they saw the black throne and the young man sitting on it. Even now, the young man looked calm and lazy, resting his head on his fist. Since there were no flames between them, Michael was able to look at him clearly. The young man had smooth skin, perfect jaw structure, blue eyes, and neck-length raven black hair. He was not by any means the most handsome or dashing young man, but undoubtedly he had a charm that rivaled even Michael. The calm look on his face added an extra charm to his personality. The young man rubbed his neatly trimmed stubble beard, sweeping the arena around him with his gaze. Michael heard countless people gasping in shock. Michael wondered why they teleported the young man with his throne. That's him. Kill him. Bastard. Many people began to shout and throw whatever they had in their hands. But the rest seemed pale. Silence! Suddenly a thunderous shout echoed through the arena, silencing everyone. Michael looked in the direction of the shout to see a red-robed man standing up with a golden crown on his head. The man radiated a kingly aura with his neatly pruned gray beard, shoulder-length wavy black hair with strips of gray hair, and broad shoulders. If you may court mage, Michael saw a white-robed old man walking toward the king with a long white beard. He carried an ancient-looking wooden staff in his hand. When he reached the king's side, he raised his staff in the air and pointed the end towards the young man. Mystic bounds, Hunter and his group took a step back, looking at the chains made of silvery astral energy flying towards the young man from the court mage's staff. The chains coiled around the young man like a snake. Still, the young man remained calm without showing any signs of distress or fear. "He is secured, your majesty," the old man bowed deeply as the king nodded. Then the king turned his gaze towards Hunter and his group. Hunter stepped forwards. "You and your team had done this kingdom a great service by capturing him. It's an honor to serve this great nation, your majesty," Hunter bowed. Visits. For the best no_vil_scored_ng experience, immediately the hundreds of people in the arena began to shake the arena with their thunderous cheers and claps. Hunter waved his hand all around, and so did his team. After letting Hunter and his team bask in glory, the king raised his arm, again silencing the crowd. Hunter, the king uttered the name again, but surprisingly for Michael, the king was looking at the young man on the throne. "Do you have any words to explain your actions?" The king asked the young man, who was apparently also called Hunter. "I have 2 words." For the first time, Michael heard the young man open his mouth. His voice sounded calm, domineering, clear, and hard as steel. "Thank you." The young man stood from his throne, stretched his arms, and cracked his neck. Just like Michael, Hunter also wore a black long coat with crimson-red linings. In addition, he wore a tight black shirt underneath his coat, hiding the chiseled chest and muscular abs. Hunter's words confused the king and everyone in the arena. "What are you devil blabbering?" The court mage growled. "Ha!" Hunter broke into a short burst of laughter. "Court mage Alistair, I am not the devil." Hunter cracked his knuckles, disregarding the white chains around him. "I am the guy that when I wake up, the devil says, 'Oh shit, he's up.'" A devilish grin appeared on Hunter's face as he grabbed the astral chains around him. He locked his gaze with the court mage, and the old man's eyes went wide when Hunter crushed the chain out of existence. "Impossible!" The court mage gasped in shock. The black-armored Hunter and his team quickly lost their prideful grin. The latest underscores are on website. Dogzilla. Hunter near the throne whistled. Boom. Only several seconds passed after he whistled when something hit the ground a couple of inches away from Hunter's throne. Michael looked up to be surprised by a German shepherd with majestic golden wings hovering in the sky. "Say hello to our little friend fuckers, woof woof." Michael raised his brows, hearing the dog cursing everyone in the arena. In a blink of an eye, the royal guards, armed to the teeth with silver armor, surrounded the king and the court mage. Meanwhile, Hunter and his group took a step back and were poised to attack. However, they were all confused by the black metal object in front of Hunter, except Michael. He knew what it was and was genuinely stunned. The black metal object was a .50 caliber machine gun mounted on a metal base. Hunter grabbed the machine gun and pulled it towards him. When he pulled closer, the metal base retracted and merged with the throne. "You can have my name." Hunter, holding the trigger, turned his gaze and the barrel of the .50 caliber gun towards the other Hunter. Since these people had no idea what this beast was capable of, the people remained still instead of running for their lives. Each bullet fired from the gun could tear through an armored vehicle like eggshells, and if Hunter fired at the people around them, it would turn the people around into a pulpy mess. As far as Michael could see, the people in the arena had no cover unless they were capable of casting some powerful defense spell. Although Michael did not know about the cultivation levels of this universe, something told Michael that most of them were way weaker than Hunter. "You can dress like me." Hunter loaded the bullets into the gun, pulling the spring toward him to turn off the safety. "But you clown will never be me." As soon as Hunter snickered, looking at the other Hunter, he pulled the trigger. Boom. Hunter didn't even have time to unsheath his swords as his body exploded into a bloody mist. "Arg!" A lady from the arena screamed as loud as she could, but it was muffled by the sound of .50 caliber gun firing rapidly. "Ha ha!" Hunter laughed like a maniac as he rained bullets on everyone. Boom. Visits. For a better user experience. Boom. Boom. One by one, Hunter's team exploded into red mist before they could even react. Finally, the people in the arena snapped back to reality from their initial shock. However, it was too late for them. Hunter's body trembled because of the recoil that could dislocate a weak man's shoulder after firing the gun several times. "Arghar! Your Majesty!" Hunter turned the gun around without taking his finger off the trigger towards the king. "Astrel shield." The court mage Alastair immediately casts a shield, forming a white shield around the king and everyone around him. Unfortunately, the shield was not powerful enough to stop Hunter's shield-penetrating bullets. The nobles screamed, yelled, and tried to run away as the entire arena was in chaos. Yet no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't escape the bullets coming out of Hunter's gun. Hunter laughed louder after he painted the walls with the king's innards. Unfortunately, the royal guards and the court mage weren't spared either, as they were soon turned into a red mist by Hunter in a few seconds. If anyone else was in Hunter's place, Michael would have expected them to stop after killing Hunter and the king's group. However, it wasn't the case. The man raining down bullets and massacring the unarmed nobles was the deadliest man on Earth, the youngest dictator of Kingdom Blade. While Michael walked in the shadowy underworld, Hunter Blade ruled the militaristically superdeveloped Kingdom Blade and was feared by every single leader in the world. Even back on Earth, none of them dared to put a contract on Hunter's head. That was why Michael never put on a path to assassinate the modern-day dictator Hunter Blade. The man terrorized the world when the world had no cultivation. So Michael couldn't even imagine what he would do in a cultivation world where he seemed to have the upper hand. Hunter Blade is the MC of Dictator with a badass system. How do you like this? Hunter laughed as he continued to massacre every single noble in the arena. Hunter proved to everyone in the arena why he was the most feared crime boss in the world. The king and the nobles poured their resources to mess with the wrong man and paid the price with their lives. Visits. For a better user experience without any idea that Hunter had his own version of a badass system, Michael watched Hunter destroy the arena along with every noble who rushed here to witness his death. The booming sound of the machine gun echoed through the arena, reminding Michael of his life back on Earth and the power of firearms. However, the sickening sound of the gun eventually stopped resonating after Hunter killed the last noble in the arena. Finally, Hunter took his finger away from the trigger, clapping and dusting off the gunpowder from his hands. Hunter's world was exactly like Michael's. Still, unlike Michael, Hunter built an arsenal of weapons based on the weapons he had back on Earth. This 50 caliber machine gun was one of those weapons he built with the help of the badass system. A few hours after Hunter massacred everyone in the arena, he vanished into thin air. He teleported himself with his throne, the dog, and the 50 caliber machine gun to the castle previously besieged by the other Hunter and his group. Luckily, Michael hitched on his teleportation and arrived right at Hunter's room in the castle. Michael's room in the dark forest was gloomy, dark, and lit with crimson red light. On the contrary, Hunter's room was lavish, brightly lit with a grandeur chandelier, and filled with fancy furniture, including the elegant round bed in the center. The golden curtains draped over the glass windows, preventing the beautiful view of the kingdom beneath the castle. However, since Hunter's room was on the castle's highest floor, Michael could see almost the entire city of Ravenfort. The room had a mixed vibe of fantasy, medieval, and modern. The walls were painted charcoal black while the Victorian-era furniture gave off a certain charm to the room. In addition, there was also a large oak table and a throne behind the table just beside the fireplace. The fireplace lit the room with golden-orange light reflecting the armors, portraits of Hunter, and weapons hanging on the wall. At that moment, Michael would rather watch the city outside than Hunter's bed. Charm. Moaning sounds echoed through the air as Michael avoided turning his gaze towards the golden-haired woman on top of Hunter. It wasn't that Michael had never been with a woman, but he felt uncomfortable looking at someone else making love. Although Michael could not block the sounds from reaching his ears, he focused on various weapons and parchment on the oak table to get some sense of the universe. Michael still hadn't figured out why he was in Hunter's universe. Thus, he was trying to get some information to answer his question. While reading the parchments on the table, Michael came across the word astral energy several times. It was apparent to Michael that this universe contained astral energy just like they had arch energy. Comparing to see which energy was more powerful was borderline pointless. Hence, Michael focused more on if he could find anything related to the queen or the key. Meanwhile, the moaning sound started to get louder and louder to the point it annoyed Michael. Fortunately, several minutes later, the girl stopped moaning and finally fell beside Hunter. "Wow, that was great, Ayano," Hunter panted as the girl breathed heavily. For a few moments, the girl couldn't utter any words. Just by hearing her heavy breaths, one could tell how exhausted she was. After the intense love-making, no one would blame her for being exhausted. "You didn't tell me where you put the prisoners, Hunter?" Ayano, the golden-haired beauty who currently laid beside Hunter half-naked under the blanket, asked, "Is this your version of pillow talk?" Hunter smiled. Hunter's words made Michael chuckle a bit. Just a few hours ago, Hunter massacred hundreds of people without showing a shred of mercy. Anyone else in his shoes would have at least shown some remorse or some kind of feelings. But instead, Hunter came back to his room and made love to Ayano. He even killed a king without thinking about the consequences. However, Michael had a feeling that Hunter planned everything from the beginning. Visits. For the best no_vel_ed_ng experience, unlike the other Hunter thought, they were not trapping Hunter, but Hunter was trapping them, including the king. Michael didn't blame Hunter though, because those nobles and the king were there to execute him. The other Hunter was literally planning to loot Hunter's castle and bed the girls in the castle. So they were not saints who didn't deserve death. It was only that Michael would have chosen an elegant way to kill them all or killed only a few prominent figures such as the king to make a statement. That was Michael's style. Hunter, on the other hand, preferred to root out his enemies no matter the cost. After reading the parchments on the table, Michael learned that Hunter may be looking to build a criminal empire spanning the entire world. "He's creating a criminal underworld," Michael said to himself. Apparently, many of the parchments contained logs, information about underground pathways, and a list of criminals and corrupt officials in each kingdom. "I just want to see who dared to siege my prince." Ayano cuddled Hunter and played with his raven black hair. "Is that so?" Hunter asked with a gentle smile on his face. When he smiled, Hunter looked so gentle and kind. No one would believe it if one said he just massacred hundreds of people in cold blood. Ayano nodded as she rested her head on Hunter's chiseled chest. Did you know they sent Hunter to hunt the hunter? Hunter was amused, recalling how he killed one of the best soldiers Sentinel Prime had. Really? Ayano quickly raised her head to look Hunter directly in his blue eyes. Yep. Where are they? I mean, where did you put them? Ayano seemed weirdly interested in where Hunter sent his prisoners. In fact, Michael also wondered what happened to the flying man-of-war ship and who was Hunter's inside man within Dictator Hunter's organization. There is a snake among us, Ayano. Hunter's voice turned grave. Snake? Among us? What makes you say that, Hunter? As the girl was expecting an answer from Hunter, he rolled to the side and picked up the bottle of wine from the table beside the bed. Then, Hunter chugged the wine down his throat without even using a mug. He finished the entire bottle in a couple of seconds. Traitors are more dangerous than enemies, Ayano, Hunter said, showing no emotion in his voice. Visits. For a better user experience, I love treason, but damn I hate traitors, Hunter growled. I'll look at me. Suddenly Hunter slapped his forehead playfully. You asked me where I put Hunter and his group, right? Ayano nodded as Hunter rolled to the side yet again. This time, he grabbed a vial with blood inside from under the bed. Hunter tossed the vial to Ayano as she grabbed the vial and looked bewildered. That's what's left of Hunter. Hunter rubbed his chin. It might be that dwarf or the orc. Fuck it, this was all I found at where I killed him. Michael finally couldn't keep his eyes on the table as he looked up at Ayano and Hunter. Though the latter looked calm and showed a smirky smile, Ayano looked pale and flabbergasted like she had seen a ghost. Psst. Ayano stuttered, her hands shivered as Hunter took a last sip from the wine bottle. Sorry for your loss, Ayano. Hunter brushed her hair, then he tilted his head as a devilish grin emerged on his face. Or should I say Sentinel Agent Monolith? Hunter asked. Suddenly, he just broke the wine bottle on the bed frame and stabbed Ayano in the neck at lightning speed. She grabbed her neck as blood sprayed out all over the place, turning the white sheets into red. She squirmed and wriggled frantically while Hunter stabbed her again and again until she stopped twitching forever. Softness to traitors will destroy us all. Hunter threw the broken glass away and looked at Ayano's lifeless body soaking the bed beside him. Michael was truly stunned by Hunter's ruthlessness. He was just making love with the girl a moment ago. Even the sweat on their bodies didn't dry, but he just stabbed her to death. The latest episodes are on website. After stabbing Ayano aka Sentinel Prime Agent Monolith to death, Hunter removed the blanket and left the bed whistling like nothing happened. He grabbed a white towel, swiped his face, and flicked his wrist as all the blood on his just vanished. While Hunter was putting on some clothes, Michael floated towards the girl and sighed. Of course, Michael didn't feel sympathy for the girl since she was actually working for the other Hunter organization and disabled the defenses. Unfortunately, she played a deadly game and lost it. When dealing with a man like Hunter, one must be utmost cautious. As a dictator, Hunter faced death threats and assassination attempts on his life on a daily basis. As a result, he gained the skill to read people and spot traitors in a few seconds. How did he end up here? Did he die and transmigrate to this world with a system? The mere thought of Hunter having a system sent chills running through his spine. The last thing this universe needed was a killing maniac like Hunter to have a system. No host. Hunter does not have a system. The system surprised Michael by answering him all of a sudden. Michael sighed in relief as Hunter finally finished putting on his black robes. I look good. Hunter stood before a mirror, combing his hair to make it look perfect. He then moved on to adjusting his coat and shirt and brushed away the dust off his black coat. After everything was said and done, Hunter went to his seat behind the oak table. But instead of sitting, he pulled aside the curtains, revealing the city sparkling under the night sky outside. You can stop looking at the naked girl now. Michael was stunned, hearing Hunter's words. For a few moments, Michael looked around to see if he was talking to someone else. Being in soul form doesn't mean no one can see you, Hunter said without even turning around. His gaze was still locked on the neon city he created. System, can he see me? It seems so. The system's voice trailed off. The moment something goes wrong, Do whatever you need and teleport me to safety, Michael ordered the system before slowly floating towards the table. Visits. For the best no_underscore experience. Hunter waited till Michael floated beside him. Yes, I can see you, Hunter calmly said to Michael when he arrived at his side. Hunter looked at the city before him and talked to Michael. Michael was still in shock at how the heck Hunter could see him. He asked the system only to receive no answers from it. Isn't it beautiful? Hunter asked Michael, looking at the neon city before him. It took me years to create this place. But they are trying to decimate it in a few days. Hunter's gaze became as sharp as a sword. She was one of them? For the first time, Michael talked to Hunter. Hunter nodded. I don't know about the place you came from. But here, the noble women would rather lose their lives than sell their bodies. Hunter looked over his shoulder at Monolith. That bitch came from one of the proudest families, yet she decided to be my bitch. Do you know why? Hunter turned his gaze towards Michael. In Hunter's eyes, Michael was a ghostly white smoky silhouette. Michael didn't say anything as Hunter snickered. Because she wanted to capture me more than she wanted to keep her body pure. Hunter creased his brows. Do you know why they want to capture me? Michael shook his head, although he had a clear idea why. Because they are just afraid of me. The weak fear the strongest. They fail to grasp the fact that people are either strong or weak. The strong rule and the weak die. You are right, except... Michael looked at Monolith's lifeless body for a second before turning his gaze back to Hunter. The strong don't let others play them. Ha! Hunter surprisingly burst into laughter. You think I just realized that bitch was a snake? Hunter shook his head with a devilish grin. The moment she stepped into my circle, I knew all about her history. She just thought she was playing me. I created that illusion around her. This time Michael was indeed slightly surprised. Then why? Michael's voice trailed off as Hunter chuckled again. Visits. For the best no_underscore experience, you want to know why I didn't kill her, right? Michael nodded. First of all, I fed the Sentinel Prime with phony information through her. Besides, what was the rush? The sex was so great, Hunter shrugged. You don't feed a cattle to crown but to slaughter. After hearing Hunter, Michael did feel pity for the girl. However, Hunter was apparently using her from the beginning without realizing that she was just a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. If the same thing happened to Michael as the Guardian Guild sent a spy to him, he would have killed the spy. However, Hunter was ruthless and evil enough to bed them, feed them with phony information, and finally slaughter them in the bed with a broken bottle. Enough of me. Tell me, why are you here? You looking for something? Hunter asked Michael. Michael was just about to make up a story when Hunter surprised Michael yet again. You're searching for the key. Am I right? Michael kept his face straight but was startled by Hunter's words. The last thing Michael wanted was to get the key that might enable the holder to travel between universes. If you worry about what I would do if I had the key, don't bother. Instead, worry about what she would have if she got her hands on the key. Michael heard Hunter's voice turn grave and saw the calmness on his face gradually disappears. The Queen, Michael said as Hunter nodded. How did you know everything? Michael couldn't help asking Hunter, who seemed to know a hell of a lot more than him. You are not the only one who traveled to other universes, Ghost. Hunter pulled down the black shirt he wore beneath a long coat to reveal a long deep mark running across his left chest. Received this gift from the Shadow Realm. Michael was still in shock, wondering how Hunter managed to know his identity. You know, where I came from. We had a ghost too. Michael's heart skipped a beat as Hunter continued. Just his name was enough for the elites to wet their pants. No one can blame them because he was the most dangerous assassin my world has ever seen. Hunter slowly reminisced his time on Earth and talked about the most feared assassin of his time. Visits. For the best no_vel_g experience, when he gets you as his target, you will die. You wouldn't know when or how. Most of the time, the target's family wouldn't even know he or she was actually assassinated. There will be no clue, no trace, or no evidence. Ghost was a myth, a legend. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 20,000 badass points. The system sounded in his mind and surprised him with the number of badass points he just received. Only a selected number of people knew the ghost existed. Once upon a time, there lived the ghost. Hunter said the last few words like he was singing, "I was among the selected number of people." But suddenly, the ghost disappeared. Some said he died, some said he never existed, and some believed he just retired. "What do you think?" Michael asked calmly. Michael could tell that Hunter has already decoded his identity by looking at his eyes. "I think he went to another universe. I think he became a god." Hunter stepped closer to Ghost and looked him in the eyes. "I think he traveled through the shadow realm and standing before me." Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 30,000 badass points, so I assume he'll be the first man to see the ghost and live to tell the tale. Hunter smirked. "Luckily for you, I am retired." Hunter Blade. This time, Hunter raised his brows in shock. He had no idea how Ghost recognized him. Granted, Hunter used the same name he had back on Earth, but he was transmigrated into another body. There was no way in hell he looked the same as he did on Earth. Yet, Ghost recognized him. The youngest dictator in the history of the Earth. The man who took the throne of Kingdom Blade at the age of 6. The most dangerous modern-day dictator to walk the Earth. "The last time I heard, you were building more nuclear missiles. What happened, Hunter? They blew up in your face?" Michael chuckled, and so did Hunter. "Not on mine." Hunter grinned. "Let's just say I reset the clock of Earth before coming to this universe." The cold, devilish grin on Hunter's face made Michael think the worst. Still, Michael had no one he cared for and loved back on Earth. So whatever Hunter did to Earth failed to upset Michael. "Look, Ghost. We are both from the Earth, and that makes us kinda brothers in arms." Michael chose to remain silent, so Hunter would give him more information without him asking, and just as Michael expected, Hunter talked more about the Queen and the key. "We are more happy and free in our respective universes. No matter how powerful and feared we were back on Earth, it cannot be compared to what we have in our own universes." Hunter slowly turned his gaze back to the city outside and sighed. "Visits. For a better user experience, but something threatens what I'm building here." "The Queen," Michael said as Hunter nodded. "You reek of queens," sent Ghost. "If I am right, and I usually am, you had already come across one of her generals." Michael creased his brows. "When I say generals, it's not the human generals you might have met. These abominations could end all life on a planet within a few hours. So imagine what their queen is capable of." "You fought one of these generals?" asked Michael curiously, but he saw Hunter shook his head with a tired smile. "I am powerful but not powerful enough to defeat the generals. In fact, neither of us could defeat them. At least not yet, and we cannot defeat the Queen alone. That's why I want to help you locate the key. We can die fighting alone or live standing together." Michael pondered everything Hunter said for a few moments before breaking the silence. "Hunter, how did you know everything? If you already went to the Shadow Realm, what stopped you from getting the key?" "I don't remember anything except killing hundreds of skinless, ugly bastards." "How many universes have you gone to?" Hunter's answer disappointed Michael, but when he looked into Hunter's eyes, Michael didn't see any signs of Hunter lying to him. "2, including yours. You went to Etheria?" Michael nodded, only to see Hunter deeply exhale. "Then you have one more universe to go to. The most powerful and dangerous universe of them all." Just by hearing the seriousness in Hunter's voice, Michael could draw an idea about the next universe he was about to travel to. "It's where everything began." Hunter clenched his fist. "Those fucking idiots." Hunter cursed the mages in his mind. Hunter deeply regretted letting the mages open the ancient pyramid. If he had known at that time the Queen's general was caged in the pyramid, he would have stopped them by any means necessary. Now he had to find a way to stop the Queen's general before it broke the rest of the shackles put by the ancient gods. Here, shoving his anger to the corner of his mind, Hunter flicked his wrist as black card with a golden lion head embossed on it appeared in his hand. Hunter tossed the card towards Ghost as Michael caught the card in midair. Surprisingly, Michael was able to touch the card despite his ghostly form. "This is a calling card. With this, I can travel to the universe and you can visit mine. Remember, the card can only be used once. If the general in your world broke its shackles, use the card. It'll do the same when the time comes." Visits. For the best no_vil_ed_ng experience, Michael looked at the card before putting it into his storage. Although Michael had no love for Hunter, he was right. With his current level, Michael didn't think he could stand a chance against the Queen's general. If his instinct were right, the Hydra might be the Queen's general in his world. Michael wondered where Hunter got the card that enabled them to travel between universes. However, he received nothing but a smile when Michael asked about the card's origin. It had become apparent to Michael that Hunter holds secrets of his own, just like himself. The next universe, tell me about it, Michael asked Hunter. Like I said, it's where everything began. At least that's what I learned in the Shadow Realm, said Hunter. You have a mark bearer with you in Shadow Realm. Hunter asked Michael. Michael nodded. Obviously, Hunter also had someone who had a rune just like the rune on Sabrina's hand. Hearing Hunter's question, Michael learned that Sabrina was not the only mark bearer. Besides, compared to Etheria, Hunter's universe had more similarities with Michael's universe. However, Michael did not know how similar Hunter was to him, as he had his own version of a badass system. Obviously, both the systems were oblivious to the other's existence and although they shared the same name, they were not the same. Then follow the mark, and if you are lucky, you will reach your last destination without any surprises. Surprises? How many skinless ugly fucks have you fought until you came here? Hunter answered Michael with a question. 48? Hunter smiled, shaking his head. You are lucky indeed. I fought hundreds or thousands of them. Back then, the place was swarming with the Queen's minions. So I guess I drove them to near extinction, Hunter chuckled. Now Michael slowly grasped why the Queen was so pissed at Hunter. The engravings on the wall showed Michael that Hunter killed the Queen, but according to Hunter, he was not even strong enough to defeat her general. This meant either the woman with thousands of arms was a general of the Queen, or what Michael saw was the future version of Hunter. It also made sense to Michael how Hunter learned more about him. There was indeed a possibility that Hunter visited Michael in his own universe somewhere in the future or learned about his future from the engravings on the walls of the Shadow Realm. I don't know where you're gonna end up in the timeline of that universe, but no matter where you land, I'm pretty sure you will meet the ancient gods. You remember meeting them? Michael asked Hunter. Vaguely, yeah. I was so weak back then, so my memories were hazy. Yet again, Michael saw no signs of Hunter lying to him. As far as Michael could tell, Hunter was either a great liar or he was telling the truth. Michael's instincts told him it was the latter. The latest underscores are on website. Do you know anything about someone called Shinjio? Michael asked Hunter. Normally, Hunter wouldn't answer anyone, and he preferred to be the one asking the question. However, Hunter made an exception for Michael because he needed Michael's help in defeating the general and the Queen once the Queen waged war against his universe. It was not that Hunter couldn't fight her alone, as Hunter had the badass system with his side. But Hunter wanted to raise his odds of winning against the Queen. Hunter wasn't building a criminal empire from the ground up and creating a shadow organization just to die fighting the Queen for the greater good. Just like Michael, Hunter also wanted to live his immortal life to the fullest. The only difference between Michael and Hunter was the path they chose to achieve their goals. If Michael had Guardian Guild and Skyhall, Hunter had Sentinel Primes and his own set of problems. To be honest, Hunter's life was more exciting than Michael's because Hunter chose a high-risk, high-reward approach while Michael played safe like the hitman he was. Never heard of her, Hunter shrugged. Where was I? Yeah, the ancient gods. Hunter closed his eyes for a moment to recall everything he could about the ancient gods and their universe. When I met them, they were in the middle of a war and a long time away from reaching godhood. Who knows? You might meet them at the point they are already ancient gods. As Michael listened to Hunter, he felt a gentle sucking force from above. Shit, my time to leave this place is nearing. Michael took a long deep breath. Well, good luck dealing with your shit ghost. I wish we never meet again, but I have a feeling fate will bring us together one last time. Hunter sighed. I'm kinda disappointed we never get to meet each other back on Earth. You know about my track record, right? If anyone put on a contract on you, you wouldn't have reached this universe. Michael grinned, and to Michael's surprise, Hunter too laughed. Maybe. But have you ever thought why no one put a contract on my head? Michi remained silent as Hunter's trademark evil grin emerged on his face. Because I killed everyone who tried to do that. Michael felt the suction was getting stronger and stronger. On the other hand, Hunter sensed the distortion in the space around him. "Well, meet again, Dark Mage." Michael gave Hunter a two-finger salute playfully. "I have no idea what you're talking about." Hunter shrugged. "Remember, we need him to defeat the Queen." Visits. For the best experience, what? Michael's figure was slowly diapering out of Hunter's view as the vortex sucked in Michael. "We need him to defeat the Queen." Hunter raised his voice. "Who?" Michael shouted back, looking at Hunter's figure rapidly growing smaller and smaller. "Dawn." Unfortunately, Michael didn't hear the name clearly and had already disappeared out of Hunter's sight. Finally, Michael's vision turned dark once again. When he visited Etheria and met Draven, Michael brought back the idea of a new device. Although the shield would boost his defense to the next level during close combat battle, it wasn't as valuable as the information Michael received from Hunter. Information was wealth. The more information he had on the Queen and her army, the easier it would be for him to devise a plan to defeat her in the future. Everything was pitch black around him until he saw the familiar light at the end. After several minutes, Michael's soul was tossed out of the crack right back into his physical body. As soon as he settled into his body, Michael injected himself with one large dose of healing potion and a few others to prevent himself from vomiting blood. What was that? He looked over his shoulder to see Sabrina cautiously approaching him. They didn't feel the tremor anymore, fortunately. Still, the demonic cry Sabrina heard freaked her out. No idea. Michael lied because Sabrina had no need to know about the other universes and what he learned in Etheria and Hunter's universe. "The sooner we find the key, the better," Michael said. For Michael, it felt like he had gone for hours. However, not even a couple of seconds passed in the Shadow Realm. Hence, Sabrina didn't feel anything weird except he looked a little pale in her eyes. Let's go." Michael stretched his arms, cracked his neck, and walked forward, following the way Sabrina's rune showed him. "You heard that voice, right? It was yelling the name Hunter." "This place is creepy as hell," Sabrina said while walking beside Michael. She looked around, expecting trouble. But luckily, they found none. "There are so many mysteries in the world, Sabrina. I let the authorities deal with them however they see fit. I have enough things on my plate." Sabrina wasn't surprised by Michael's answer. Ghost was the only one with the least enemies and the least adventurous life among all the prodigies and youngsters in Noah's generation. The royal news called him the most peaceful and boring prodigy. Michael read the news and didn't give a damn about them or blame them. But, to the outside world, he did lead a boring life unlike Noah or any other prodigies. He avoided making enemies, meddling in others' affairs, and preferred to mind his own business. However, the people who called him boring had no idea about Michael's adventurous secret life. "Speaking of plates, Mother wanted to invite you for a family dinner when I last visited home." Visits. For the best experience, really? Michael was taken aback by surprise. This was before or after the tournament? After. "No one blames you for what you did. If anyone should be blamed, it's Andrews and the king for making weird decisions. I don't think she will feel the same now," Michael calmly said as Sabrina felt something was up. "What happened?" "Nothing. I just killed King Bridia's royal guards and threatened to kill him in front of his daughter and several nobles." Sabrina's mind went blank for a couple of moments. Considering she was in the cage when Michael slaughtered King Bridia's men and threatened to kill him, she didn't know what had happened recently. "I kinda expected that." Michael turned his head to the side, being surprised by Sabrina. "You expected it?" Sabrina bobbed her head up and down. "Yes. After the tournament, I visited Princess Catherine. At that time, King Bridia was talking with some merchants. Accidentally, I went into the room and heard him asking the merchants to stop visiting Bradford. I knew it was only a matter of time before you hear the news and pay the king a visit. I hope he learned his lesson," Michael calmly said. "I avoid massacres." "That doesn't mean I can't do it." Michael's words may have sounded calm, but she sensed the cold, murderous intent behind his each and every word. She did not doubt in her heart that if King Bridia messed with Ghost again, the latter would slaughter his entire army along with him. How he fought and killed the vampires showed her how powerful he was. His mysterious cultivation stage made him more dangerous. Michael and Sabrina walked in silence for a few minutes until they heard a rustling sound coming from behind. They both quickly jerked around but saw nothing. Yet again, they heard the rustling sound, but this time, it was louder than before. Growling. Something growled as Michael sensed the slight tremor beneath his feet. The slight tremor soon increased to the point Michael and Sabrina took off from the ground for a few meters. Only then did they see a red pair of glow in the sky above them. The latest episodes are on website. The pair of red glows soon diminished into darkness. But Michael was sure something stared at them from above. He looked around and began to hear a continuous clicking noise followed by soft growls. "Stay close to me," Michael said to Sabrina as she moved closer to him and watched his back. "Where are you, bastard?" Michael mumbled, activating his X-ray vision. His thermal vision swept across the area around them until he saw a silhouette of what looked like a 10-foot bear jumping from one wall to another. Despite its size, the creature showed the agility of a trained parkour expert. On top of its size and agility, the creature also possessed the ability to turn invisible. Fortunately, unlike Sabrina, Michael had a thermal vision to detect the creature. "A core-strengthening stage creature," Michael mumbled under his breath. Since he bought the ability to detect the relative cultivation stage of the creatures in Shadow Realm, Michael was able to see how powerful the creature was. Although it was one stage lower than him, its size and agility made up for its weakness in the cultivation stage. As Michael followed the creature's movements, Sabrina saw a blue dot on Michael's chest. Michael already noticed the creature taking aim at him, but before he could react, Sabrina pushed him aside out of the blue laser line. It felt like the predator was hunting him. The clicking noise, the invisibility, and the laser line made the creature extremely similar to the predator. Boom! Michael felt a hot wave of air brushing past him when Sabrina pushed him. Then, at that exact moment, he heard an explosion behind him and turned back to see a green hot liquid eroding the ground beneath. There was no doubt in Sabrina's mind that if the green goo had hit them, they would have melted to the bones. Michael could hear the sizzling sound coming from the ground along with the hot wave. "This is why you need a shield," Michael mumbled. Recently he had been getting into so many close combat fights without involving spells. During these fights, the responsive shield would not activate and protect him from the blows because it only protects him from spells and attacks formed using energies. Michael may have reached 98% mastery in Serpent Mega, but having no shield to defend himself was still a weakness as far as he was concerned. "Where is it? Can you see it?" Sabrina asked as she moved with her back against Michael's back. They moved in a circle while Michael tracked the beast, who kept jumping around second after second. He couldn't make out its full figure, but it vaguely resembled a wolf the size of a 10-foot bear. Since he was using thermal vision to see the creature's heat signature, he couldn't make out the creature's other features, such as skin color, number of teeth, or whether it had fur or not. Visits. For the best no_underscore_underscore experience, Ignitia, Michael quickly raised his sword, firing a bolt of lightning at the creature. His lightning bolt traveled at the speed of a lightning flash, yet the creature was able to escape being hit by the bolt by jumping to the wall on the other side. Its speed stunned Michael. "Did you hit it?" Sabrina asked. "It escaped. Can you see it?" She was surprised. "If you can't see it with your eyes, see it with your other senses." "Close your eyes and listen," Michael whispered to Sabrina, and she closed her eyes without any hesitation. She trusted him completely. Michael didn't lie to her, though. He trained his senses to paint a mental map using his other senses back on Earth and could still do it. However, he had no need to use that ability because he possessed the X-ray vision to track the beast. However, Michael asked Sabrina to close her eyes because he wanted to cast the death range and boost his power quickly. Since the arena was already dark, no one could see the place getting darker. The moment Michael felt his full power bubbling inside him waiting to be unleashed, Michael raised both his arms, shooting 2 dark lightning bolts out of his hands towards the beast. The beast jumped, trying to evade, but this time, Michael's lightning bolts were faster than the beast. The beast immediately let out an ear-piercing roar in pain. One lightning bolt went through its shoulder and the other went grazing its skin. Michael quickly turned off his thermal vision to see luminescent blue blood trails on the wall. The blood trail was leading them further into the path before him. The blood was the first colorful thing he had seen in the Shadow Realm so far. Until now, everything else looked black and white. You hit it, Sabrina was a quick study. Hence, she could vaguely track the beast's movements when she closed her eyes and focused on the surroundings. After the beast roared, Sabrina abruptly opened her eyes to see the blood trail. If the beast dashed at him after being hit, Michael would have felt relieved. However, now he was concerned. The creature seemed to possess intelligence. Thus, it ran away instead of dumbly lunging at Michael. "Let's go. But be careful and don't drop your guard," Michael said and continued his journey into the narrow straight pathway. After walking for a few minutes, the blood trail disappeared, and everything became normal. Nonetheless, both of them stayed silent, focusing their senses. While cautiously making his way forward, Michael noticed the engravings in the wall beside him starting to form shapes of figures once again. Seeing the figures on the wall, Michael deviated from his path and approached the wall as Sabrina followed him behind. "I have no idea what you're looking at," Sabrina sighed. "The latest underscores are on _this website. I like these engraving designs. I am thinking about getting them for my new mansion." Michael lied, but there was a little bit of truth to his answer. New mansion. Sabrina tilted her head. Michael nodded. Building a new home for him in Rivertown had been his plan for a long time. Unfortunately, because of the Guardians Guild, the Dark Lord, the prophecy, and everything, Michael didn't have time to plan his new home. However, after Gaia and Michael's engagement, they both decided to start building a new home in Rivertown. Michael could easily afford a large piece of land in Royal Land, and if he asked, the king would probably give Michael a land for free, as having a 5-star alchemist in their kingdom would boost its value to the next level. Instead of building his home in the wealthiest kingdom in Elon or living in Baron Totonk's mansion, Michael planned to build a castle for him in Rivertown, which is a part of Kingdom Bradford. What about Baron Totonk's mansion? As a king, shouldn't you live there? Sabrina asked Michael while he was trying to make sense of the engravings. At that moment, Michael saw the lion with wings once again. It was standing on an elevated platform and looking at the thousands of people on the ground who seemed to be worshipping the lion. There were several figures standing behind the lion, including a few pointy-ears beings, elves. Michael immediately recognized them due to their iconic pointy ears. In addition to the elves, he also saw dwarves, orcs, beastmen, and several dragons flying above them. Even the crowd on the ground consisted of all races, not only humans. "That's a mansion. What I want is a castle," his words surprised Sabrina. After hearing that he wants a castle, she couldn't help raising her brows. "You want a castle?" However, after thinking of his status, it made sense to Sabrina. "Well, you are a king after all. It makes sense for you to rule Bradford living in a castle." Sabrina stepped closer to Michael, joining him in watching the wall. "I am only going to live there, not rule," Michael calmly said without even turning his gaze away from the wall. "Huh?" Sabrina was taken aback by surprise. "Visits? For the best experience? What do you mean? I am not interested in being a king. Sect leader Claire and the elders can rule the kingdom better than me." Sabrina was speechless as Michael continued. "I like the way some kingdoms in the southern continent are ruled. Rather than being ruled by one man or woman, they are ruled by several, each responsible for developing one aspect of the kingdom. How could you throw away the kingship after everything you did to get it?" Sabrina creased her brows. "I am not going to throw away Sabrina. I'll be the king, except I want sit on the throne all day and rule the kingdom myself," Michael nonchalantly said and moved along the wall to see more figures and scenes in the wall. The portion of the wall before him contained a scene where Michael noticed several dragons flying around a majestic castle surrounded by a forest. He searched for the lion with wings but didn't find the beast. Instead, he saw a lady with dragon wings floating near the castle along with a little girl. Michael took a few steps to the right to see countless dragons breathing fire down on human soldiers, and the one who led the dragons was the lady with wings Michael had seen before. "If you are serious about building a castle, I know a dwarf who's a 5-star architect. He owes me a favor. I can lend him to you." "Really?" Michael turned his head towards Sabrina. "Yes. Then I won't say no to that. Where do I find him?" Sabrina shook her head with a smile. "I'll bring him to you. Just tell me, where can I find you?" Sabrina sounded so sure about getting out of the shadow realm alive because she was confident with Ghost by her side, she could survive anything. "After this, if we survive, you can find me in the Sunrise sect." Michael turned his gaze back to the wall. He continued to walk along the wall looking at the engravings of the war between dragons and humans, until the engravings changed, showing Michael a giant hydra. Just looking at the size of the four-headed hydra and recalling the pair of eyes staring at him from the abyss in the Stormville Mountain, Michael felt a chill running through his spine. Visits. For a better user experience, Michael slowly moved his gaze down from the hydra to see a man carrying a sword and a battle axe in each hand standing before the hydra. But, unfortunately, Michael could only see his behind, not his face. Dawn. After an hour, the Guardians finished the funeral. Then, they left the graveyard except for Noah, Alicia, Zanali, Tanulia, and a blue-haired youngster with a tattoo of a tiny fish on the center of his forehead. Noah hadn't seen the youngster before and was certain the youngster wasn't a Guardian. So Noah wondered why he was there. He looked so young in Noah's eyes. If Noah had to guess, he would say the youngster was 27 or 28 years old. Despite the heavy downpour, the youngster remained dry and kept a calming smile on his face. After everyone left, he approached Tanulia. "I am sorry for your loss, Alpha Guardian Tanulia Valrin." The youngster had a melodious voice. It was so soft and soothing. "Thank you, and you are?" Tanulia's voice trailed off as the young man smiled, showing a row of perfect white teeth. "I am Mutrad, member of House of Halder. I am here on behalf of the elders." Noah saw Tanulia's eyes open wide as though she was completely taken aback by surprise. "Your kind haven't stepped onto the land in centuries." Tanulia was shocked. In return, Mutrad just smiled. "Dire times, Alpha Guardian. What's your purpose here, Mutrad, and how can the Guardian Guild be of your assistance?" Noah creased his brows, wondering why Tanulia was acting so polite and courteous towards the young man. He had never seen Tanulia like this. Even when she met the elders of our Empress, she remained dominant. "Guardian Guild can stay away from our way and let us take care of the Dark Lord." "What?" Tanulia was stunned. Not only Tanulia but everyone who heard Mutrad's words was both surprised and startled. Mutrad's smile was still on his face, and although he looked friendly with the smile on his face, Noah sensed the dominance in his words. "No offense, Mutrad, but your kind has no right to meddle in our affairs." Tanulia's voice became cold. "It's no longer your affair." Mutrad flicked his wrist as a golden parchment materialized in his hand. "Read Clause 88. Mutrad handed over the parchment to Tanulia. While she was eyeing the contents, Mutrad began to recite what was on Clause 88, Visits. For the best no_vel_read_ng experience, House of Halder will have any and all rights to operate in any continents under Guardian Guild if or when they fail to protect a member of House of Halder. Noah had a bad feeling in his gut listening to Mutrad. Additionally, the House of Halder is allowed to use any and all of its resources to neutralize the threat and avenge the deceased however it sees fit. Tanulia could see each and every word on the parchment as Mutrad continued. The Guardian Guild will provide any and all assistance the House of Halder requires. In case the House of Halder requests the Guardian Guild to remove themselves from the investigation, they must agree. Mutrad's gaze swept across everyone standing in the graveyard. He stopped reciting the contents for a moment to build silence and let his words sink into their brains. In case of Party A, the Guardian Guild failed to comply to the clause, House of Halder and 3 halls of the proud sea folk race has all the right to wage war on Party A and use any and all resources available to them. When Mutrad finished his last words, Tanulia looked flustered. Her hands slightly trembled. "Peyton is a Guardian, not a member of House of Halder," Tanulia growled. Yet again, Mutrad flicked his wrist, taking out another golden parchment. When Peyton Colwyn went missing, Stefan Colwyn requested Peyton to be admitted into House of Halder. "This is the confirmation of her membership." Tanulia snatched the parchment from Mutrad's hand and opened it to see the truth about Peyton's membership in the House of Halder. Tanulia couldn't believe her eyes. According to the navy blue sparkling letters on the parchment, Peyton was granted membership to the House of Halder. How can you admit someone into your house without their consent? Tanulia questioned Mutrad, but looking at his smile, Noah knew he had an answer for that too. In case the requested party is not available to sign the contract, his or her blood relatives who must be a member of the House of Halder can sign on their behalf. Tanulia didn't even think of going through the contract signed between the Guardian Guild and House of Halder, as she knew Mutrad wasn't lying. Stefan Colwyn signed the contract on Peyton Colwyn's behalf. Tanulia looked at the parchment to see Stefan's signature on the contract. Everything seemed to have been done legally by the House of Halder, but Noah couldn't help feeling like the House of Halder had planned to step on their territory for a long time. Visits. For the best no_vel_read_ng experience, it seemed to Noah that the House of Halder was using Peyton's death as an excuse to spread their influence throughout the land. Apprehending the Dark Lord would definitely put them on top of the Guardians and also receive unprecedented support from the nobles and the Holy Church. Teacher. Noah called for Andreas in his mind, as he saw no way to prevent the House of Halder from taking away the case of the Dark Lord from them. You have to become a member of the House of Halder, Noah. That's the only way we can find the Dark Lord without facing the full wrath of Halder and starting a war against two great clans. Andreas' grave voice sounded in Noah's mind. We will give you a week of time to hand over everything you have on the Dark Lord and sort out your affairs. Mutrad waved as the two parchments disappeared from Tanulia's hands. I assume we will get your full consent, Alpha Guardians. Tanulia burned in anger as she felt like chopping Mutrad to pieces. But deep down she knew he was just a messenger. The last thing she needed was to cause a war between the Guardian Guild and the House of Halder. Hence, she had no way but to accept their terms. Yes, you will. Tanulia nodded. Wonderful. Mutrad clapped his hands together excitedly before ascending to the sky. But unfortunately, the Guardians could only stare at Mutrad disappear into the dark clouds in a few moments. When he finally disappeared from their sight, Noah turned his gaze to Tanulia. He didn't utter any words, but Tanulia could see the disappointment in his eyes. You think it's my fault? Tanulia asked, looking at Noah's expressionless face. Noah remained silent. We can't let them bully us. Peyton is a guardian. I don't care what they say. Zanali stomped the ground like a kid throwing a temper tantrum. Still, Noah remained silent. His silence irked Tanulia more than anything. After all, she couldn't bear the thought of disappointing the future Supreme Guardian. Noah, Zanali turned her bloodshot eyes at Noah. Say something. What's your plan? Why bother? Noah snickered. The latest _episodes are on _ website. I am not the one running the show here. We should follow our Alpha Guardian's lead. Noah was so disappointed in both Zanali and Tanulia to the point he didn't even want to talk to them. He might be the god of light, but even he had his limits. To be honest, Noah didn't want to blame anyone, but deep down he couldn't help blaming Tanulia. Because of her rash decisions, they lost Peyton, Tiriana, many guardians, and their headquarters in Draddle. The Dark Lord played them like they were kids. Noah lost count of how many times he told Peyton, Tanulia, and Zanali not to underestimate the Dark Lord. Still, they tried to capture the Dark Lord with their half-baked plan. Thanks to them, Noah had lost the one advantage he had over the Dark Lord, as now the Dark Lord learned that the Guardians knew about the spy cams. We are not here as Guardians, Noah. We are here as Peyton's friends. You can speak your mind, Tanulia sighed. You want me to speak my mind? Noah slowly walked toward Peyton's grave. One of the best is lying under 6 feet. The gravediggers are digging 50+ graves out there as we speak. The House of Halder is pushing us aside. And last but not least, the Dark Lord learned that we know about the spiders in your ship. So next time, he will come up with a new way to spy on us and we won't have a clue. Zanali saw Noah losing his calmness for the first time. Suddenly, Noah slapped himself on the forehead. Pardon my mistake. There won't be a next time. Because we are not the one dealing with the Dark Lord anymore. Although Noah didn't raise his voice, his anger was apparent to everyone. Tanulia was speechless as Noah took a deep breath and brushed Peyton's headstone gently. Meanwhile, Tanulia was shivering inside what Noah might do if he knew that Sabrina was taken hostage by the vampires and it was a part of her plan to get the key first. Only Kat knew about Sabrina's whereabouts except for Tanulia. But she had no idea Kat was coming to her bearing serious bad news about Sabrina. After his outburst, Noah felt kinda bad. So he turned his gaze back to Tanulia, but when he saw Tanulia's silence and the deep concern within her eyes, he frowned. Do you have something to share, Alpha Guardian? Tanulia was too concerned about Sabrina's moment in her plan as she didn't even hear Noah calling her Alpha Guardian. Noah slightly raised his voice and finally, Tanulia snapped head back to reality. What? Go on, Tanulia mumbled, having no idea what Noah just said. Why do I feel like you're hiding something, Alpha Guardian? Noah asked. On the other hand, Alicia too felt the same just as Noah. Visits. For a better user experience, don't waste time talking to these idiots, Noah. Let's get out of here. We have more important things to do, Andrea snickered. You don't know everything, Noah. Tanulia coldly cut off Noah so he wouldn't ask any more questions. At that moment, Tanulia could only pray that Sabrina would lead them to the key and come out alive. Otherwise, she may have to pay with her own life. Meanwhile, Michael was walking along the walls of the dungeon with Sabrina. He was certain that he would meet the lion with wings and the youngster who carried a sword and a battle axe. Don, Michael recalled the name echoed through the walls a few moments ago. The demonic voice never sounded so pissed off as when it shouted the name. According to Hunter, the last universe was the most dangerous one he had visited. Something told Michael that the journey was coming to an end. Thanks to Hunter, who wiped out the skinless creatures and the most powerful beings who guarded the Shadow Realm, Michael never faced any life-threatening battles. Michael was both grateful towards Hunter and furious at him for clearing the Shadow Realm. He could have earned hundreds of thousands of badass points by killing the skinless creatures. The question that currently drilled his head was whether the people of the next universe would see him or not. He had to plan for both scenarios. If size mattered, suddenly while they were walking forward, Michael heard an alluringly magnetic voice reverberate in the area. Elephant would be the king of the jungle. Did you hear that? Sabrina asked as Michael nodded. What are these voices? Where are they coming from? Sabrina looked around her surroundings pretty confused. No idea. Michael lied instead of revealing the truth that these voices are coming from other universes through the cracks in Shadow Realm walls. A king isn't born. He is made. Another voice echoed through the maze. Unlike the previous voice, the latest one had a bit of a thick animalistic tone to it. After hearing the voice, Michael's brain automatically thought of the lion he saw on the wall. On the one hand, they heard the voice, and on the other hand, they looked around for the beast. While cautious looking around, the two of them continued their journey. Michael saw no beast nearby. Instead, he saw a silhouette of a lion with wings in the sky for a second. I will rather be a lonely lion than a popular sheep. Michael could swear he saw the lion talking before disappearing from his sight. This time, Sabrina didn't seem to hear the voice as she walked beside him without turning her head. I don't think the beast ran away. Instead, she talked about the beast Michael had wounded before. Michael nodded as he too shared the same thought. If his gut feeling was right, the beast would be waiting with a trap. Better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. Michael heard the first voice again. Visits. For the best understanding experience, he quickly looked at the sky, expecting a silhouette, only to see nothing but dark sky. My life, every day, every minute, every second has been chiseled by me. Michael felt as if his head was about to explode when he heard the thunderous voice sweeping across the maze. Ja! Following the voice, Michael and Sabrina heard the beast roar in agony. The entire maze trembled as Michael felt the violent tremor on the ground. Remember, there are two sides to every story. Just like your face, once again the voice swept across the maze. But contrary to before, the voice calmed down the tremor. However, Michael had a feeling it was only the calm before the storm. He expected the beast to arrive soon. Then, just like he expected, he began to hear the soft clicking noises in the distance. Let's kill this beast. Sabrina threw the sword in the air and let it fall in her hand. She even cracked her neck just like Michael. Michael did not notice Sabrina copying him as he focused on the voices resonating throughout the maze. I begged for love. You gave me a dagger through my heart. Now you ask for forgiveness. I'll give you death. After these words resonated, Michael saw a silhouette of a man wearing dark clothes in the sky above him. He wore dark armor and covered his head with a cloak. The man was about to turn around and show his face when Michael noticed a glare in the distance. Michael's instincts screamed at him to dash away. Boom! Fortunately, Michael reacted in time to dash away. Otherwise, he would have exploded into pieces. When he turned around to see where the explosion was happening, he noticed a meter-wide crate on the ground a few meters away from him. In a blink of an eye, another glare appeared in the distance. Before dashing away, Michael looked up at the sky to see the silhouette slowly fading away. Mitchie was kinda disappointed that he couldn't see the face of the young man, and Dee got annoyed by the beast firing fireballs at him from a distance. "I had enough of this," Michael growled as he paced up forward with the clear intention to brutally murder the beast. Sabrina ran behind him while avoiding the fireballs. Visit. For the best no-understanding experience, the beast roared as loud as it counted, but surprisingly, the roar sounded like the beast was screaming in pain rather than roaring in anger. Michael immediately felt something was up as he halted his pace. "Why did we stop?" Sabrina asked Michael with a confused face. "Listen, yeah." Sabrina focused her hearing and heard the beast roar. "Focus," Michael whispered as she closed her eyes and focused on the roar. Only then did she sense the pain in the beast's roar. When she focused even more, she vaguely heard another growling sound. The screaming trailed off as they moved forward. "Don't drop your guard and be ready to cast your shield spell," Michael instructed Sabrina while taking each and every step with utmost caution. He activated his thermal vision so he could see if there were any invisible beasts around them. A few meters away, the straight path ended and a sharp corner arrived. They couldn't see what was around the corner, but Michael saw traces of luminescent blue blood on the walls. Michael quickly pushed Sabrina to the wall and stood his back against the wall. "Be ready," Michael whispered before slowly taking steps towards the corner. While moving towards the corner, Michael quickly controlled the drones hovering above him and moved them around the corner. However, as soon as the drones flew around the corner, Michael was stunned. Through the feed captured by the drones, he clearly saw the beast that had attacked them previously. It was a 10-foot wolf with 5 eyes on its face. Additionally, the beast's mouth was wide open like a flower. But the beast wasn't what surprised Michael because it was dead. Instead, the monster feasting on the beast startled him with its giant size and savage body. The humanoid monster stood on its 2 legs and ravaged the beast with its claws. It gutted the beast, feasting on its entrails. Michael zoomed at the monster to see the resemblance to the skinless creatures he had fought before. The monster covered its skinless body with skulls and bones. Additionally, the monster also had long, oily, thick black hair. Even the 10-foot beast looked tiny under its defeat. The giant monster stood at towering healing of 16 feet tall. The latest underscores are on website. Suddenly the monster stopped eating the beast's entrails and raised its head. It began to take a whiff of the air, turning its head to the drones. Michael saw its blood-red eyes staring directly at the drone. It had become apparent to Mitchie that the monster sees through the drone's invisibility somehow. Michael immediately tried to pull back the drones, but it was too late for the drones as the monster swatted the drones as though they were flies. The drones weren't built to withstand heavy blows, and the monster could crush a boulder with its palm, let alone his drones. Bang! When the monster swatted the drones against the wall, the place trembled. "Jurish!" The monster growled as it took a step forward before kicking the beast away. "What do you see?" Sabrina whispered. "Sure." Michael shushed Sabrina as he slowly slid along the wall to look around the corner. "Fuck you, Hunter." As soon as Michael saw the giant monster with his eyes, he cursed Hunter, who said he wiped off the powerful monsters in the Shadow Realm. Before Michael took his gaze away from the monster, he did notice a deep cut running across the monster's chest. For some reason, Michael thought it was Hunter's handiwork. Obviously, Hunter tried to kill the monster by the look of the scar. However, it was evident Hunter failed. But Michael had to give it to Hunter. He was crazy and fearless enough to fight the monster head-on. How the hell did he become so powerful? Michael recalled how easily Hunter massacred the mages and the other hunters group. Although Michael had no idea of the power hierarchy in Hunter's universe, he had a feeling that Hunter stood atop the hierarchy. The monster was at the fricking fusion stage level 6. Therefore, Michael knew he could not fight the monster and survive unless he fought the monster as the Dark Lord. The monster kept sniffing the air while stepping toward Michael and Sabrina. Battle with the monster would be inevitable at this rate. Taking a deep breath, Michael turned his head to see Sabrina. He prepared himself to inject Sabrina with the knockout serum using a spider and then go full Dark Lord. However, he was just about to take out a spider when he suddenly noticed the wall directly opposite him crack. Visits. For a better user experience before Michael felt a powerful force from the crack sucking his soul into another universe, he heard the young man's voice again. If they stand behind you, protect them. If they stand beside you, respect them. If they stand against you, destroy them. Soaring through the darkness towards the light, Michael heard the monster's shriek behind him. Michael looked over his shoulder to only a blur behind. At that same time, a farm field was littered with destruction, blood, and shells. Red, pink, and blue were the new colors of what was once a stunning farm field, which had now become the stage of a disastrous fight. The air, which would typically carry the delicate scents of flowers and fruits, was now thick with the scent of death and decay, enough to destroy whatever courage was left in the survivors. The dead soldiers were abundant and lay in heaps around the farm field. The remaining soldiers shivered to take a step forward, frantically looking at the sky as if they were expecting something. The remaining soldiers lost all their courage to fight. Many had already succumbed to hysteria and could no longer move, let alone defend themselves. In contrast, others could only think of home and what they had left behind. The toll on both nature and humanity was devastating. It would likely take decades before this farm field will have recovered. The broken siege engines, rubble, and blood had taken the place of flowers, shrubs, and bushes. Some of the soldiers, frantically looking at the sky for breakfast, noticed a black dot suddenly appear in the cloudy sky above. Though soon, the black dot grew in size to the point they all realized that it wasn't a black dot but a man falling from the sky. When they saw the man's black robes, they immediately dropped their weapons and fell to the ground. Run! Some of the soldiers completely lost their minds. Michael was trying to balance himself in the sky and shouting at the system. Unlike before, when he traveled to Etheria and Hunter's universe, Michael was pulled into the current universe with his body. In other words, he was not in his soul form. Michael felt no arch-energy or celestial energy around him. Hence, he couldn't stop free-falling and start flying. Fortunately, Michael saw a broken trebuchet in the battle. Fuck you, system. Michael cursed the system as he flapped his arms like a bird to change his trajectory towards the trebuchet. He was falling from such a height that the wind brushing against his face hurt his skin. If he didn't stop free-falling, Michael doubted one could scrape his body from the ground completely after he became a human omelet. Fortunately, Michael still wore the Mark III grappling hook around his wrist. So when he was approximately 50 meters away from the trebuchet, Michael reached for the trebuchet, aimed at its top, and fired the grappling hook. The grappling hook soared through the air and coiled around the top. Catch it! Due to his speed being suddenly stopped by the grappling hook attached to his arm, the backlash force dislocated Michael's shoulder. He growled in sharp pain. He gritted his teeth and released the hook. Gich! Finally, Michael hit the ground, holding his shoulder. Thanks to his quick thinking and the trebuchet, Michael survived the fall with only a dislocated shoulder. Could have been worse. Michael looked around his unfamiliar surroundings. But unfortunately, his vision was still blurry because of the pain and dizziness of traveling through the shadow realm to another realm. As soon as his vision cleared, he cautiously noticed the blue armored soldiers surrounding him. The latest underscores are on website. It's not him. Who the fuck is he? Where did he come from? Let's capture him before the White Death appears. The soldiers slowly stepped toward Michael, tightly clenching their weapons. Whoa, guys, slow down. Michael stepped backward, holding his shoulder. He was startled by how powerful these soldiers were. Each of them could fight a soul-refining stage level 5 warrior from Michael's universe. At least 60 soldiers were surrounding him. Despite his shock, Michael kept a calm face. System, it's not the right time to go silence, Michael growled in his mind. However, no matter how many times he summoned the system in his mind, it didn't respond to him. Look at the way he's dressed. All black. What if he's related to him? Michael saw a soldier stutter. Exactly. If he's related to him, we can take him hostage and bring him to His Majesty. Guys, don't do anything you will regret in the future, Michael calmly warned the soldiers as they quickly took a step back from him. Whoosh. As they were reluctantly staring at Michael, whether they should approach him or not, Michael saw two warships soaring through the sky from north and south. The warships were no different than the frigates in Michael's universe, except these two ships were flying in the sky. The ships are here. Suddenly, the soldiers screamed in joy as Michael noticed several of them cry out loud. Most of them dashed away from Michael, shooting towards the ship from the ground like rockets. Meanwhile, some soldiers still stared at Michael without moving an inch. What are you waiting for? Come. Some soldiers shouted at those surrounding Michael. They cared for their lives more than capturing Michael. After all, they came with 1,000 strong, and only 50 or 60 of them survived the onslaught. The White Death single-handedly wiped out the majority of them. White Death would have killed all 1,000 if it weren't for their mage. I'm catching this guy and avenging my brothers. Slow down, guys. Michael squeezed his shoulder, preparing himself to fix his shoulder as he saw no way out without fighting. The soldiers who landed on the airships quickly threw out ropes for those who couldn't fly to climb up. Then, the ships hovered in the sky, waiting to pick up the survivors. Visits. For the best experience, let's go. One soldier shouted at another one, let's get the fuck out of here before they come. No, these ships are built to last against them. They can't destroy them. Michael had zero clues about what they were talking about. However, one thing was sure, those who slaughtered the soldiers can't damage the ships. At least that is what Michael heard from the soldiers. However, the sound of thunderclaps suddenly swept through the area as the sky grew darker and darker. The wind howled like a wolf as flashes of lightning flashed across their eyes. Shit, he's here. The soldiers who tried to capture Michael courageously lost their willpower completely. Boom. When another thunderclap reverberated throughout the battlefield, they dropped the swords and spears in their hands. Michael looked above to see clouds dark as his robes were gathering in the sky. Their surroundings turned ominous darker, with lightning flashing across the area. Boom. Suddenly, when the soldiers were about to turn around and run, a thick dark bolt of lightning hit the ground between the two ships. Everyone, including Michael, couldn't help closing their eyes due to the bright flash. When they opened their eyes, Michael saw the young man adorned in dashing black armor, covering his head with a cloak, standing at the place where the lightning bolt hit. Without a doubt, Michael knew he was the same young man he saw in the engravings and in the sky as a silhouette in the shadow realm. It's him. God. No. The soldiers were thrown into pure chaos when he appeared, and the soldiers surrounded him just collapsed to the ground in utter fear. The moment the soldiers atop the ship saw him, they screamed as the two ships began to move. After that, they did not bother to wait for the soldiers on the ground anymore. However, the black-robed young man grabbed the ropes with each hand. The latest underscores are on website. The ships trembled as they slowly moved away on opposite sides while the young man coiled the ropes around his fist and began to pull them closer. Seeing the scene, Michael raised his brows. Since the soldiers were focused on the man, Michael gritted his teeth and jerked his shoulder, fixing his dislocated shoulder, which released a sickening crushing sound before setting in right. After setting his shoulder, Michael grabbed a soldier by his collar and picked him up from the ground. Who is he? Michael shook the terrified soldier. Don, the soldier stuttered. So he is Don. Michael let the shoulder go as he turned his gaze back at Don. When he was in the shadow realm, the demonic voice screamed the name Don. The thunderclouds rumbled as Don pulled the ropes closer and closer. Michael's muscles ached just by seeing Don pulling two ships together with his raw strength. Don's arms trembled as he moved his head upwards. Only then did the cloak covering his head slide down, revealing his face to Michael. Don is the MC of Rise of the Legendary Emperor. His raven black hair was just long enough to touch his lower neck and fluttered in the wind. He had a stubble beard a few inches thicker than Michael's, and despite the monstrous task he was performing, his face showed no signs of pain. Michael could see Don's biceps screaming to tear out his black armor, which seemed to have been made of a material resembling Kevlar. Don wasn't the most handsome but rather looked no different than the next-door guy. However, he had a certain indescribable aura that made him stand out. Inch by inch, Don pulled the two ships together while the soldiers atop the ships tried to cut off the ropes. At least that's what the soldiers tried to do before Don yanked the ropes, shaking two ships. "You!" Michael finally heard Don speak, and his voice sounded more dominant and hard as steel than it did in the Shadow Realm. Don pulled the ships closer, going. Michael noticed the ships getting closer to each other inch by inch, as well as the smoke coming through the ships. Nowhere. The latest episodes are on website. Boom. Finally, the ships gave off as they suddenly clashed with each other and exploded into pieces. The explosion lit the gloomy farm field like a mini-sun, and the explosion force swept across the field, blasting away the corpses, the broken siege machines, and everything on the ground. The exploded ships fell to the ground only to create another mushroom cloud explosion. Michael was blasted away by the force, and he landed on the mud after flying for at least 10 meters like a kite without an anchor in the storm. Gore! Michael growled, feeling the aching pain in every single part of his body. He injected himself with the healing potion, but it did not heal his body at all. "I hate this place." Now Michael realized why Hunter said this universe was the most dangerous one of them all. Being in this universe with his body made him vulnerable. Only if he had access to arch energy or celestial energy, he might have hated the place less. After picking himself from the ground, Michael leaned on the broken trebuchet beside him and took some deep breaths. Boom! Once again, a thunderous explosion swept across the area, but fortunately, it produced less force than before. Still, the blast happened where Don was standing. If any normal human being was caught in the explosion, they wouldn't survive in a million years. However, Michael knew Don was not a normal human being. After all, he just saw Don bring down 2 frigate-sized ships from the sky with his raw strength. Although Don used battle energy to enhance his strength, no one could have done the same even if they had battle energy running through their veins. Instead, it required an immense amount of raw power to bring down the ships. Michael would have chosen to sabotage the ships from within, but something told him Don had no choice. All those who survived White Death died in the explosion, and the rest who didn't get on the ship lay around the farm field without moving an inch. The fire burnt many of them, and Michael doubted they would survive for much longer. He couldn't care less about them. Those soldiers tried to capture him. Hence, Michael felt no pity for the soldiers. Instead, Michael looked around the farm field, taking his gaze away from the raging fire where Don was standing. Michael would have gone into the fire if he had his powers. If he tried to get near the raging hot flames now, he would be melted like a candle. Even standing several meters away from the explosion site, he sweated as he was inside an oven. As he was breathing heavily, Michael heard storm clouds rumbling in the distance. Surprisingly, the thunderclaps sounded so close to Michael. He quickly looked above as he felt like the sound was coming from above him. The moment he saw the sky, he felt a chill running through his spine. At that point in time, a vortex appeared in the sky, and Michael noticed the monster peeking through the vortex head first. "Holy fuck!" Michael shouted as he frantically looked around. His mind told him to prepare for a fight instead of waiting for someone else to come and save him. Therefore, Michael looked around to find something. Since he lost the arch energy, it was doubtful the monster would still possess any arch energy to fight. The only advantage the monster had over him was its superior size. If he could repair the broken trebuchet beside him, he could fight it without using spells. While limping towards the trebuchet's broken pulley system, Michael wondered how the hell the monster could travel from the Shadow Realm to here. Visit. For the best no_vel_read_ng experience, to be honest, Michael thought only he could travel between realms. But he was proven wrong when the monster crawled through the vortex in the sky. The monster's head was out and it was squeezing the rest of its body through the vortex. "Ja!" While it was squeezing through, the monster noticed Michael with its big eyes. As a result, the monster screamed with pure hatred and anger. "What the hell did I ever do to you?" Michael showed the monster his middle finger and picked up a few broken planks as well as some metal pieces from the ground. "Ja!" The monster screamed as loud as it could, and its roar sounded louder than the thunderclaps themselves. Michael quickly rushed his word as the monster seemed more pissed off after he showed his middle finger. "System, you fuck? Where are you?" He tried to summon the system, but once again, he received no response from the system. The last time the system went offline was when it screamed something about omegas. So Michi wondered if the system's unresponsiveness was related to the omegas. Michael didn't completely blame the system as he knew the system wouldn't go offline suddenly without reason. Still, he was pissed at the monster coming to kill him, and he had no one to blame. Inch by inch, the monster crawled out of the vortex. But suddenly, the monster screamed as it dashed out of the vortex, finally coming out. The monster began to fall from the sky. Michael wished the monster would break its legs or die when it hit the ground. However, the monster's superior size would save it from dying instantly. Besides, unlike Michael, the monster was falling from a lower height. Michael rushed to fix the trebuchet. The only thing that could save him from the monster was the trebuchet. Deep down he hoped Dawn would come out of the fire, yet when Michael looked over his shoulder, he saw no one walking out of the fire. Boom! Finally, the monster landed on the ground, creating a large crater-like meteor. Michael started at the crater without batting an eye. After the vortex disappeared from the sky, he heard no sound except the whistling wind and thunder rumbling. However, soon Michael saw the monster's hand as the monster climbed out from the crate. The monster was 16 feet tall and several feet wide. Michael looked small compared to the monster, and even the trebuchets looked tiny. "Jurich." The monster growled as its gaze swept across the battlefield until its gaze stopped at Michael. Then, locking its eyes with Michael, the monster exhaled, letting a puff of smoke out of its nostrils. Visits. For a better user experience, the monster slowly lifted his hand, pointing its finger at Michael. "Damn it, what did I do?" Michael cursed his luck. "I need fire." Thanks to his inventor skills, Michael found a way to fix the trebuchet with what he had: a couple of planks, metal pieces, and some torn clothes. Unfortunately, he needed fire but couldn't summon his dark flames. Meanwhile, the monster began to walk towards its target, growling. Each step of the monster caused a tremor and produced ominous pounding sounds. Michael frantically looked around to find a flame, but there was only one fire source on the battlefield, the place where Dawn brought 2 ships down. Well, fuck it. Michael threw the planks and metal pieces in his hand to the ground and began to rush toward the fire. He hoped his robes would protect him against the fire, and even if he did get burned, he could heal himself when he returned to his universe. The monster noticed Michael limping towards the fire as it started to speed up its steps. The monster closed the 100 or so meter distance between them in a couple of seconds, and soon, it reached a hand-reaching distance from Michael. Boom. However, when the monster tried to grab Michael, the monster awkwardly flew back before crashing down like a broken airplane. Michael heaved a sigh of relief as he looked over his shoulder to see an object soar through the air. Michael closed his eyes for a second, replaying what just happened in his mind. The monster was chasing him, and something came from the fire and hit the monster in the chest, sending it flying. He replayed the scenes again to recall what hit the monster. A warhammer. Michael saw a vague shape of a warhammer with one pointy head and a blunt head. It was painted black and decorated with golden runes. "Jah!" The monster screamed from a distance. It struggled to stand up, but eventually, it did. Suddenly, Michael heard a rustling sound as he turned his gaze towards the fire to see Dawn calmly walking out of the fire with the warhammer in his hands. The raging hot flame that melted the metal like a candle didn't harm him. He calmly walked through the fire. "That ugly thing bothering you?" These were Dawn's first words to Michael. Before Michael could nod, he noticed a black bow that looked directly stripped out from an anime or a game. Visits. For the best experience thud. Dawn put the warhammer down as he raised his bow. With another flick of his wrist, Dawn retrieved 6 black arrows and knocked them on the bow's string, surprising Michael. First, Don didn't look like a bow and arrow guy. Second, even Gaia could fire only 3 arrows at the same time. But Don knocked 6 arrows on the bowstring and pulled them back. Don waited until the monster took a few steps toward them, and when it took its 5th step, Don released the arrows. As soon as the arrows left the bow, they created a shock wave that pushed Michael a step back. In addition, the arrows produced a loud bang like Don had just fired a gun. Boom, 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 boom. Michael heard loud explosions sweeping across the farm field as he noticed the monster's body parts starting from head to toe, exploding into red mist in a straight line. Sigh. Michael heaved a sigh of relief when the arrows shattered the monster into pieces. Even after killing a terrifying monster, Don showed no expression on his face. The bow and warhammer vanished into thin air as he turned his gaze towards Michael. Come on, Ghost, we have a lot to talk about. Michael was stunned by Don as the latter called Michael by his name, just like Hunter. Cat. Michael noticed a dim glow in Don's ear. Teleport us back to Everlight. Michael sensed the air around him becoming colder and his vision blurred in a blink of an eye. Welcome to Everlight. Michael heard a sweet melodious voice from behind. The latest episodes are on website. At the moment, Michael was standing on a stoned road between endless paddy fields. The fields looked like 2 golden bedsheets blanketing the ground. He could see another farm field far away from where he was. Instead of humans, the paddy fields were worked by all races. He was surprised to see the dwarves, elves, orcs, beastmen, and humans working together, and looking at the smiles on their faces, he could tell they were joyful folks. To be honest, Michael was stunned. The sight around him was too beautiful. The sweet smell of paddy and the sound of the fields dancing in the wind soothed his soul. His momentary bliss was abruptly cut short when he heard a melodious voice from behind. Only then did Michael realize that Don wasn't there. He slowly turned around, only to be stunned by the elf standing in front of him. She was beautiful. No, she was an angel. Her golden hair made the golden paddy fields pale in comparison. It danced around her shoulder as her hazel eyes stared at Michael with curiosity. She was the most beautiful girl among all the girls Michael had seen. No one could be remotely compared to her beauty, not even Gaia or Layla. The elf was in a different realm when it came to beauty. Michael had never felt speechless like this ever before. Her smooth skin, coupled with her perfect hourglass figure, stunned him. The emerald green robes she was wearing perfectly complemented her tall, majestic body. You must be the Otherworlder, she smiled slightly, making Michael's heart skip a beat. But Michael quickly snapped out of being mesmerized by the beauty. Otherworlder? Michael questioned, where are my manners? I am Amaryl Cameron, and you, she blinked curiously, must be Ghost, one and only. Michael smiled, knowing there was no point in hiding his identity when obviously she knew about him. Because of Michael's focus on Amaryl and her beauty, his brain didn't process the majestic castle on the horizon. The castle towers stood way above the clouds while the magnificent waterfall behind the castle helped the sky form a beautiful rainbow across the castle. The scenery looked stripped straight off from a fairy tale book. Michael had never seen such a huge castle in his life. Countless round towers formed a protective barrier all around the castle, and they were all connected by lower, chunky walls made of gray stone. Just as the towers, countless windows scattered here and there in the walls asymmetrically, along with asymmetric crenellations for archers and artillery. Compared to the castle of Everlight, the Guardian headquarters looked like a shabby house. The farmers working the fields waved their hands with full smiles at Amaryl as they walked towards the gate. The castle ground was guarded with great metal doors, a regular bridge, and large crenellations. As they were walking towards the castle gate, Michael noticed a group of elven and human girls approaching them with buckets full of flowers in their hands. When they saw Michael, they stopped gossiping as they just stared at him without batting an eye. Visits. For a better user experience, Lady Amaryl. They quickly bowed and greeted Amaryl. Didn't I tell you to call me Amaryl when Night and Dawn are not around? They let out a reluctant smile as Amaryl noticed some of their gazes on Michael. Each and every girl in the group was pretty enough to rival the most angelic beauties in Michael's world. Lady Amaryl, One of the elves threw a glance at Michael. He is our guest. So behave yourselves. Ah. The girls pouted as Amaryl and Michael continued their journey towards the gate. How may I address you? After the girls walked past them, Michael asked Amaryl. Amaryl works just fine. Since you are not from this world, it'll be awkward for you to call me Lady Amaryl. Also, who knows what you are in your own world? Heck, you might even be a king. It was evident to Michael the elf was chatty Cathy. She talked non-stop, and Michael could sense she had so many questions in her mind to ask him. Otherwise, she wouldn't look at him so often in the corner of her eyes. Rest assured, I am not a king. Do you know anything about me besides my name? How did you even know my name? Pause. Knight told me. In fact, they have been expecting you for some time, Amaryl surprised Michael. It's unfortunate you appeared in the middle of a battlefield. What happened back there anyway? Dawn wouldn't leave his training ground so easily. Instead of telling Aurora to meet you, he himself personally went there. You must be pretty important to him. Where is he? Asked Michael. Must be with Knight or went to bring back Aurora. Dawn doesn't like when Aurora goes on a killing spree, Amaryl sighed. Killing spree? All those people, were they killed by one person? Michael was shocked because even the scared soldiers were at the soul refining stage. The battlefield was littered with dead bodies, and Michael saw at least hundreds of bodies. If they were all killed by one person, they would be at least the fusion stage or half-immortal stage. While talking to Amaryl, Michael noticed the two guards flanking the castle gates. They were in full black metal armor covered from head to toe. Surprisingly, they all wore a cape that looked more than just a cloth. Noticing Amaryl and Michael approaching the gate, the black armored soldiers pushed open the gates to reveal the castle grounds. Just like Michael expected, the castle grounds were artistic and ravishingly beautiful. The neatly pruned grass field, the colorful flowers dancing in the wind, the fountains spraying water and the rainbows above them, the sound of joyful laughter and giggles, everything merged to paint a picture in Michael's mind. Visits. For the best no-understanding experience, Lady Amaryl, the guards bowed as Michael stared at them. Immediately he was stunned by the guards. Core Strengthening Stage Level 10. Each of them was at Core Strengthening Stage 10. Michael would have lost his mind if Amaryl's power wasn't at the Core Formation stage. Every single one in the place seemed so OP. Now Michael understood why Hunter warned Michael about this universe. As Michael followed Amaryl into the castle ground, many people threw their glances at Michael. Is that His Majesty? It's not. He looks like Our Majesty. Must be a friend of His Majesty. Look how he dressed. He looks friendly though, Amaryl giggled, hearing the conversations around her. You do look like Dawn. Dressed in all black and wielding two swords, Amaryl climbed the stairs leading to the throne hall and said to Michael, but you seem to smile more, unlike our Dawn. You have a better chance of seeing the sun rise in the west than seeing Dawn smile. Amaryl didn't hold back as she talked. To be honest, Michael liked the girl. She seemed so pure and good-hearted. He didn't feel any bad vibrations from her. When can I meet Dawn? Michael asked, climbing the stairs with her. Soon. But first, we have a feast planned for you. So you will eat and enjoy our ever-light hospitality. Then you boys can play whatever you want. To be honest, Michael was kind of hungry and smelled something delicious in the air. Since he had no arch energy in the universe, he felt hungry and exhausted. Thus, Michael wanted to eat something and get his strength back. Who knows when the system would come online, and he would get back to the Shadow Realm. Besides, unlike when he visited other universes, he was in his physical form in Dawn's. So he wanted to make the most out of this trip. Visits. For a better user experience, so if you don't mind me asking, do you have any lion with wings here? As soon as Amaryl heard Michael, she stopped climbing the stairs and burst into melodious laughter. Haha. Michael creased his brows as Amaryl punched him on the shoulder playfully. Lion with wings, I never heard someone call Knight lion with wings in a long time. Finally Amaryl stopped laughing and resumed climbing the stairs. You will meet him soon. He just left to kill the king of Valencia. He will be home for lunch, she said so casually, like killing a king was not a big deal. Even for Michael, killing a king would bring him unwanted risks and dangers to him. Yet these people of Dawn seemed to care less about threats. Maybe it was because all of them were so OP. Finally, when Michael climbed almost 50 steps, he was welcomed by the majestic throne hall. Lustrous braziers enclosing each of the 6 basalt columns lit up every part of the throne hall, allowing shadows to play and dance where light could not reach. The large mirrors on the layered ceiling danced in the flickering light. At the same time, statues of dawn and night looked down upon the gray wood floor of this extravagant hall. A verdigris rug ran down from the throne for a few meters before ending, while ribbon banners with golden tufts dangled gently from the walls. Between each banner hung a lantern. They've all been lit and illuminated the mosaics of various persons below them. Huge, stained glass windows depicting ancient legends were concealed by black draperies as the curtains were adorned with impressive needlework and jewels. At the end of the throne hall, the throne of dawn sat majestically upon an elevated platform, looking down. The throne resembled several dragons coiling around each other, forming one domineering throne to rule the world. The throne sat beneath the overlooking statue of a dwarf holding a battle axe. It was adjoined by several large but far less ornate thrones for the founding members of Everlight. The throne was covered in textured, layered marks, and a gem-encrusted head of a dragon was fixed on each of the elegant armrests. The light pillows were dark verdigris, which had also been adorned with ornate plumes. Those wishing to witness dawn could do so on the many lightly illuminated wooden benches, all of which were facing the thrones. "Where is that little brat?" When they both stepped onto the silent throne hall, Amriel looked around. Boo! Suddenly, Michael felt rustling behind as his instincts kicked in. In a blink of an eye, Michael unsheathed his sword, turning around. However, as soon as Mitchie turned around with his 2 swords, his hands stopped because a teenage girl was floating in the air with a bright grin on her face. "Visits. For the best no understanding experience, did I startle you?" The girl tilted her head with a playful haughty smile as Amriel stepped towards Michael. "Catelli, you shouldn't scare people like that." Michael lowered his swords from the girl's neck and sheathed them back. He was actually quite surprised to see the girl resembling Azazel's ghostly state. But what stunned Michael was the girl's power. She would be at the half-immortal stage if she was in his world. "I just wanted to see how our otherworldly friend is doing," Catelli said with a smile. "Ghost, this is Catelli." "Catelli Lees Levitt? Ghost? So it's true?" The girl's eyes opened wide. "Can you please tell me what's going on here?" Michael frowned. He had enough of the cryptic messages and wanted to know how these people knew him. "Follow me," Catelli nodded. Then she hovered away, leading him towards the door behind the throne. Michael followed Catelli behind as Amriel walked by his side. "My father, who built this castle, gave me control of every room except—" Catelli paused for a moment, waving her hand. Then, the metal door slowly opened, revealing the brightly lit corridor as they resumed their journey. "Except a room in the far end of the castle," Catelli said, floating before Michael. "Until when Uncle Ken arrived at Everlight, I had know what was inside the room." "What's inside the room?" Michael couldn't help asking. Unexpectedly, Catelli shook her head. "No one knows. Uncle Ken just told us that there is only one who can open the door, you." Michael exhaled as he was tired of being shocked by them. He silently followed her, thinking about his connection to Dawn's universe. The question of why he was in Dawn's universe in his physical form kept nagging his mind. Maybe the future me visited Everlight? Michael questioned himself. His thoughts made sense as he couldn't find any more possibilities. How could they know about Michael if he hadn't visited Everlight? "So this Uncle Ken of yours told you about me?" Michael questioned Catelli and Amriel. "Not until recently," Amriel answered Michael instead. "Visits. For a better user experience, Regais had foreseen your arrival. She kept saying four-headed monster had woken up." Michael immediately thought of the Hydra he saw in Stormville Mountain. Now after hearing Amriel, his brain started to make the connections. He recalled Hunter's words to him, "You reek of the Queen's scent, ghost. If I am right, and I usually am, you had already come across one of her generals." At that time, Michael only guessed it could be the Hydra in the Stormville Mountain. When I say generals, it's not the human generals you might have met. These abominations could end all life on a planet within a few hours. So imagine what their queen is capable of, Hunter's words sounded in his mind. There was also no doubt in Michael's mind that the Hydra we guys dreamed of and the General Hunter talked about were the same. We should talk about this here, Sister Amaryl. Let's get somewhere private and let Uncle Ken explain everything to him. Cataly's voice became serious as the playfulness on her face disappeared. Soon, neither of them uttered a word as Michael followed Cataly in silence until they reached the end of the corridor. However, there was no door before them but a gray wall. Through here, Cataly placed her ethereal hand on the gray wall as the wall slowly faded away. It was an illusion, but a great one at that. After the wall completely disappeared out of existence, what stood before them was a spacious hall lit with several braziers. The golden light radiated from the brazier illuminated the statue and a door built with shiny black metal. The trio slowly stepped into the hall. Michael's legs automatically walked toward the door with countless engraved symbols and runes. However, his eyes weren't looking at the door. Instead, he was looking at the 20-foot statue of a man. The stature resembled a man holding two swords as his long coat fluttered behind him. Although the face was not distinguishable, Michael knew the man. It was him. Someone had built a statue of him and put it in the hall. But why and how? That was Michael's question. "That's you." Suddenly, Michael heard a deeper, wilder, and stronger voice. It was a sort of heavy, golden voice. The voice made him turn around, and when he did, he saw a white-furred lion with majestic wings gracefully walking toward them. "Knight," Michael mumbled after being stunned by the lion. It had such grace. No matter how hard Michael tried, he couldn't sense Knight's cultivation level. However, he felt the distortion in the space around him, indicating Knight's power. Being mesmerized by Knight, Michael almost failed to notice the gray-haired man walking behind Knight. "It's really him, the ghost? He is a myth no more," the gray-haired man stuttered as his face became pale. "Do I know you?" Michael asked. No, but I know you. Only a few people know you." Visits. For a better user experience, but now he's the only one, Knight interjected, circling Michael. "Please tell me what the hell is going on here," Michael asked the old man. "By the way, he is Uncle Ken." Amaryl quickly introduced Ken to Michael. "To explain, I need to first tell you where I came from." "Ken," the gray-haired old man, sighed as Knight came in front of Michael. "I came to Everlight from the future. So everything I know and am about to tell you has happened in the future, and that future has become our past." Michael listened to the old man without batting an eye or uttering a word. "In the future or the time I came from had mentions about an otherworlder who visited Everlight in dire times. There wasn't much about this otherworlder except his name Ghost. According to the ancient scripts, Ghost helped Everlight and fought beside His Majesty Dawn's descendants. But only a few knew his origins. In return for his help, His Majesty's descendants and the Founder's descendants built this room." Michael looked around the room. His heartbeat raised while he tried to wrap his mind around what Ken said. There was no mention of why Ghost helped or what he received in return. "However, I believe this room contains more about your visit to Everlight in the future." As he said, Ken took a couple of steps and touched the metal door. "Before I traveled to this timeline from mine, we faced something that threatened all of our existence. At that time, we were desperate. We tried to open this door as we believed if we could somehow summon the legendary Ghost, we could survive. But we failed." When Ken looked at Michael, he could see the pain in Ken's eyes. "Only you can open this door, Lord Ghost. Whatever you're looking for, it's in there." Under their curious gazes filled with excitement and anticipation, Michael stepped towards the door, placed his hand, and expected something to happen. As soon as he touched the door, Michi felt electricity running through his spine, followed by acute pain in his brain. "System back online." Michael heard the system's sound and felt a tremendous pressure lifted from his shoulder. He wanted to question the system, but before he could talk to the system, the door produced a creaking noise, slowly opening. Everyone took a step back as the door opened inch by inch. They all waited for the door to completely open, revealing what the room had been hiding for centuries. Finally, the door wholly opened, and they all saw an empty room with a shield and a golden parchment inside a glass box. Michael was surprised because he had imagined a shield in his mind, and the shield inside the glass box looked just like the one he had imagined. It was black, round, and had a crimson-red skull in the center. There was nothing besides the glass box in the center of the room. Michael did not wait for them but walked towards the glass box. When he reached the glass box, he cautiously looked around it to see an opening, yet found nothing. "Did you feel that?" Suddenly Knight questioned the others. Michael looked over his shoulder to see everyone looking confused. Visits. For a better user experience, I can't feel any energy. Even Knight wasn't spared from the phenomenon. Finally, Michael turned around and sensed no power coming from them, none at all. At that point in time, everyone became powerless. The void spell. Michael immediately recognized the phenomenon as the work of a void spell. "You know about this, don't you?" Instead of panicking, Knight remained calm. Michael nodded, but after nodding he turned around to look at the shield. "I have a feeling we should read that parchment," Michael said. "Cataly, open that box." Amaryl frowned as Cataly waved her hand. I can't." Cataly shook her head. After seeing Cataly shaking her head, Amaryl rushed at the glass box and tried to lift it, except she couldn't even move the glass box an inch. "Let me try." Michael placed his palm on the glass box. Boom. Shockingly, Mitchie punched the glass box. Just hearing the sound of his fist hitting the glass box pained Amaryl's hand. But he beat again and again as the glass box started to crack. "Shit, you're bleeding." Amaryl noticed the blood on his palm but did not slow down. His persistence surprised Knight, and he watched Ghost break the glass box with his hands without giving a damn about the blood. Clink. Finally, after withstanding hundreds of punches, the glass box shattered, and so did Michael's knuckles. Still, Michael ignored the pain, reaching out for the shield with his broken hands. Ding! Congratulations to the host for acquiring a legendary class item, the Ghost Shield. The host's darkness manipulation has increased to 25%. As soon as Michael grabbed the shield, he heard the system notifications in his mind. Does the host wish to convert life energy into arch energy? The conversion will cost the host 50,000 badass points. After conversion, the host will be able to use cultivation power for a week. About time system, the latest _AP_SODIs are on _this website. Amaryl and everyone in the room were stunned when they saw Michael turn around with a grin on his face. Of course, no one with broken arms would grin except him. "You're bleeding. Wait here." Amaryl quickly ran outside the hall to access her space ring. Meanwhile, Michael's blood dripped to the ground droplet by droplet through his broken knuckles. Knight could even see some broken bones sticking out of his fist. Still, Michael grasped the shield tightly. "I didn't think this room had a void array." Knight creased his brows after hearing Michael's calm words. "You're familiar with the void effect?" asked Knight. Michael nodded and signaled Ken to grab the parchment upon the red cloth. "Then tell me, Ghost?" Knight began to circle Michael, and every step Knight took had the king's grace. "Have you ever met the cannibals?" Seeing the frown on Michael's face, Knight rephrased his question. "Have you ever met skinless ugly as fuck creatures?" "Met them, killed them, burnt them," Michael said indifferently. "They use these arrays to make the atmosphere void of any energies." "Not only them," Michael interjected. "Knight, from where I come from, there is a dormant hydra. An entire continent has been void of any energy because of that hydra. And I have a feeling you know who might be the boss of that hydra." Knight stopped circling as Amaryl entered the room again with a blood-red potion in her hand. "Here, gulp this down. It won't work." Michael and Knight said the same thing at the same time. "What?" Since Amaryl wasn't very familiar with void arrays and their effects, she looked at Michael and Knight, creasing her brows. "My lord." Ken took a step forward and handed over the parchment to Michael, but he couldn't lift his hand to take the parchment. "Conversion has been completed. Does the host wish to nullify the void array's effects on yourself?" It would cost the host 30,000 badass points. Yes. Following his acceptance, Michael felt an acute pain all over his pain. However, the pain soon began to lessen as Michael felt his power returning to him. "Jim." Michael cracked his neck and shoulder as Knight noticed his bloody fist slowly healing back to its previous state. "Visits. For the best no_vil__ng experience, you're immune?" Knight was surprised. Ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 10,000 badass points, ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 15,000 badass points, ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 12,000 badass points. Michael immediately earned back his 30,000 badass points by impressing everyone in the hall. Ken had read about the legendary ghost, the Otherworlder, and his power, but only now had he seen it with his eyes. He broke the void array like it was nothing. The Hydra in my world and the one that appeared in Regis' dream might be the same. A general of the Queen. As soon as Knight heard Michael's last words, his heart skipped a beat. The others' faces turned pale in an instant. So you're all familiar with the Queen? Michael's gaze swept across the room as Knight sighed. More than we want to. What's in that parchment? Knight looked at the parchment in Ken's hands. Now that APD had healed Michael's hands, he took the parchment from Ken's hand. Ghost, if you're reading this, it means you have arrived at Dawn's universe. So do yourself a favor by helping them. We need allies to fight the enemies we will face in the future. So make them yourself an ally to Dawn and Knight. And Michael read what was written on the parchment in his mind. Could it be Michael? Did I write myself a letter? Makes sense. After reading the letter, Michael's mood improved. It's slowly becoming apparent to Michael that his future self was an OP god. Michael felt glad that he was on the right track to becoming stronger. If he hadn't taken the risk of coming to meet Sabrina, he wouldn't have traveled across universes, meeting new people and getting more information about him and his enemies. Knight. Before Knight could get his answer from Michael, Cataly interjected, "We better go see this." Cataly's voice was grave. Knight slowly turned his gaze towards Cataly. "It's important." Cataly frowned, and seeing her grave reaction, Knight raised his brows. "Come with us," Knight said to Michael. Instead of following him behind, Michael wanted to inspect his new shield and the room for a few more moments. However, he was teleported away from the room by Cataly in a blink of an eye. After being teleported by Cataly, Michael's vision turned blurry. The effect lasted a few seconds until his vision finally cleared. As soon as he could see everything clearly, he noticed an elf lying in a bed, all bloody and injured. It seemed to Michael that someone hacked and slashed the elf. There was no black armor covering the elf, so Michael could even see the cuts on his body and even a little bit of his insides. "Kotar!" Amaryl shouted as she dashed at the elf. "Visit." For a better user experience, Michael patiently looked around the infirmary to see countless comfy beds in neat lines and several men and women running around the hall carrying trays. Probably with healing potions and medications. Amaryl immediately forced a healing potion down Kotar's throat, but unlike she expected, the potion did not heal him. "We are losing him, Lady Amaryl." He was cut by the corroded blade. Knight came beside Kotar and stared at the cuts on his body. "No healing potion can save him. Keep giving him life energy using the apex and put him with the others." Although Knight was burning in anger, he did not show it in his voice. Only Michael and Cataly noticed the anger in his eyes. "What's this?" Knight raised his paw and pulled something out of Kotar's pocket. General Knight. After sensing the air around the get chillier, Ken reluctantly called Knight. "They have Yuki." Michael had no idea who Yuki was or what she was to them. However, by looking at their shocked reactions, Michael understood she was someone important to Everlight. "What?" Amaryl shouted. "The cannibals have Yuki." Amaryl's rosy face instantly lost its color and became pale. She shivered as her eyes watered. "No, we have to save her, we must." Amaryl's tears gushed out of her eyes. She couldn't even imagine what the cannibals would do to Yuki if they didn't save her. They want Dawn to come to the withered forest. Alone, a dark purple flame engulfed the bloody piece of paper in Knight's hands as silence occupied the hall until Michael decided to follow the rods of his future self. "Step aside." Michael gently pushed aside Amaryl and stepped towards Kotar. The elf on the bed lost so much blood. Hence, Kotar looked pale, yet when Michael looked closer he saw dark veins spreading out from the cuts. Kotar tried to say something, but every time he opened his mouth, only a white form escaped his mouth. Systems scan his body. Michael paid 5,000 badass points to scan Kotar's body. What are you doing? Knight asked when he saw Michael place his hand on Kotar's chest. Curing him, Michael did not take his hand off Kotar for a few moments. Can you cure him? Amaryl finally broke the silence. Amaryl had seen many of her people enter a state of coma after being cut by the corroded blades. Although they were keeping them alive using Apex, there was no certainty they would wake up from their coma. In simple words, they were as good as dead without a cure. Instead of immediately answering Michael, he took out a piece of paper and a quill from his storage and began to write. If you can get me these things, I can cure him. Michael stunned everyone in the hall. Those who were running around the hall suddenly halted their steps in shock. Visit. For the best no_vel__ng experience at that moment, every pair of eyes was on Michael. My lord, Ken's hand shivered as he took the list from Michael. Ken, Knight's words quickly snapped Ken out of his stunned state. The old man quickly eyed the list for a few moments. We can get everything in the list from our gardens, but no buts. Go get him those. Cataly threw a glance at Michael before vanishing into thin air along with Uncle Ken, leaving Amaryl and Knight with Michael. This will keep him from dying until I cure him. Michael took out a healing potion from his system storage. The one Amaryl gave Kotar was a crimson-red potion, while the potion in Michael's hand was sparkling blue. This is a healing potion from my world, Michael said, slowly pouring the potion into Kotar's mouth. Since Knight trusted Ghost, he let Ghost give the potion to Kotar. Just a few seconds after Michael emptied the potion into Kotar's mouth, the white form finally stopped coming out of Kotar's mouth. In addition, Amaryl noticed Kotar's breathing had turned normal. Kotar, can you hear me? It's Amaryl. Squeeze my hand if you can hear me. Amaryl sat beside Kotar on the bed and brushed his head gently. She was elated when Kotar squeezed her hand, and Knight noticed it. You really think you can cure him? Knight asked without showing any hope in his eyes or tone. However, deep down, Knight wanted some hope to revive all his men. Although Don had a plan to fight the corroded blades, it was extremely risky, and Knight hated putting Don's life at risk more than anything. I don't think. I know. Cure them, and you can consider Everlight your allies, including Don and me. It's a deal then. Michael extended his arm as Knight closed his eyes for a moment. In a blink of an eye, Michael saw the lion turning into a dashing golden-haired youngster wearing black armor similar to Don's. It was Knight's human form. Knight nodded and gave Michael a firm handshake. My lord. A few minutes later, Cataly and Ken appeared in the room, and Ken carried a bucket filled with colorful herbs and various weird-shaped ingredients in it. After taking a glance at the contents of the bucket, Knight frowned. These are low-grade herbs and ingredients. You guys should step back. It's gonna get hotter in here, Michael smirked, raising his hand. Then, under their curious gazes, Michael conjured his alchemy flames. You are an alchemist? Cataly asked out loud the question that emerged in everyone's minds. The best visits. For a better user experience. Everyone stepped back from Michael as he told them. Michael's emerald green fire lit the hall dimly. Under everyone's curious gazes, Michael kept the fire dancing above one hand while throwing the herbs into the fire using the other. The herbs and ingredients crackled in the fire and let out their essence. Knight noticed glistening essence beads emerging from the fire in a few blink of an eye. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 10,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 13,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 10,000 badass points. How is he doing this? Amaryl questioned Cataly. She had never seen an alchemist extract essence from the herbs without a cauldron. They were pretty shocked, including Knight. Do you think his cure will work? Cataly whispered to Amaryl. We should have hope, Cataly. Amaryl liked to have hope in her heart. If his cure worked, they could wake all the soldiers in the hall next to them. Until now, 120 people have been in a coma because of the corroded blades. If it weren't for Don, all of them would have died. Michael ignored all the whispers and stares at him and continued to brew the cure. It took him almost 5 minutes to merge all the essence beads and complete the pale jade color potion. After Michael completed the potion, the vial radiated a dim emerald green light and a sweet fragrance. "This will do it, let me do it." Before Michael could pour the potion onto Kotuk's mouth, Amaril stepped forward. "Go ahead." Michael handed the potion over to Amaril, put out his alchemy flames, and leaned on the pillar beside him. After taking the potion, Amaril took a deep breath. Then, she sat near Kotuk's head and gently lifted his head before slowly pouring the green liquid into his mouth. On the other hand, Knight did not take his gaze off of Kotuk. Knight didn't even blink. It was too nerve-wracking. Little by little, the potion ran down Kotuk's throat. "Give it a second," Michael said to Cataly, who was staring at Michael, "and also, you should step away from him." Michael turned his gaze from Cataly to Amaril. "Quick, the latest ______ are on __ website. UEK." Kotuk suddenly threw up dark blood onto the floor. Fortunately, Amaril stepped back from him as Michael told her. Otherwise, she would have been drenched in the dark blood vomited by Kotuk. Kotuk kept throwing up dark blood for a few minutes before he finally stopped puking blood. After Kotuk finished throwing up, Knight noticed the cuts on his body slowly closing up. "Kotuk!" Amaril hugged Kotuk without waiting for a second. She embraced him tightly and patted him on the back. "Step aside, Amaril." However, Knight was not in the mood to wait. He just pulled back Amaril and grabbed Kotuk by his shoulders. "What happened?" "I." Plot. Knight. Michael saw Knight slapping Kotuk to make him snap out of shock. Amaril shouted at Knight, but the latter did not mind Amaril. "General Knight." Knight's slap brought Kotuk back from his shocked state. "Tell us what happened." Kotuk didn't move his gaze away from Knight. Hence, he didn't notice Michael, who just watched the scene unfolding, leaning on the pillar with his hands folded. "We were ambushed, General Knight. The cannibals ambushed us on our way to Valencia." "General Knight." Just as Katok remembered something important, he shouted, "They got Yuki." "No shit." Knight pushed him back and punched the table beside him as the table crumbled into pieces. "Cataly, war room." Cataly nodded before waving her hands. Michael knew what was coming, so he just closed his eyes for a moment, and when he opened them back, he was standing in a room brightly lit with chandeliers. They stood around an oak table with several maps. "Visits." For the best no___ experience, how did they know about our route? Ken asked Cater, who had no time to process what just happened to him or how he survived. "I don't know, my lord. They just jumped our carriage and took Yuki. I tried my best. Please forgive me for failing you, General Knight." Katrek dropped to his knees before Knight. "You did nothing wrong. Get up." Knight pulled him up by his shoulder and looked at everyone in the room, including Michael. "First things first, Ghost, can we recreate the option you made us after you leave?" "Yeah, I can write down the formula and make it easier for them. You should have no problem mass-producing them." Knight nodded as Cataly heaved a sigh of relief. While Knight was thinking about his next move, Michael took out the shield from the system storage and admired the beauty and the craftsmanship. "What kind of metal is this?" Michael mumbled under his breath, looking around the shield. This round shield was made from a sturdy but lightweight metal. It could easily offer heavy-duty protection, especially against crushing attacks and arrows and bolts. The shield's edges were enhanced with thick metal plating and decorated with a scaly texture. In addition, the one who forged the shield painted the edge with crimson-red paint to match the skull engraved in the center. With the first look, the shield seemed to have yet to see its first battle. There was not a single scratch on the surface. But Michael had difficulty believing this shield had never seen action. One thing was sure, Michael would soon test the shield in action. But although the shield would provide a great defense in a battle, carrying it around would ultimately restrict his swordplay. That's where Draven's retractable shield device comes into the picture. "I need to place a summoning rune on it." Michael quickly recalled how Eve summoned her hammer after throwing it at her foes. It would be troublesome if Michael had to find the shield after he threw it at his foes. Therefore, Michael planned to make Eladir place a summoning rune on the shield. Of course, to do that he had to first leave Dawn's universe. Unfortunately, it was not like Michael had a choice. Rather, it was up to the Shadow Realm. Until it decides to take him back, he was stuck in this universe. What are we still doing here? Let's send our men to rescue Yuki. We know where she is. Amaryl raised her concern and tried to rush Knight. It's not that easy. First, we don't know for sure that's where they are keeping Yuki. Second, it's obviously a trap to capture Dawn. The Withered Forest is a void zone. Not even Dawn can use his powers there. Knight's brows arched up as he explained. They expect Dawn to come alone, and I won't let him go alone. He has enough problems as it is. We will figure this out on our own. Brother Knight is right. We can't let Big Brother walk into a trap. If he tells him about Yuki, he will go there. Although I believe the cannibals have no chance against Big Brother, it's not rational to walk into a trap knowing it's a trap. Ken nodded after hearing Cataly. General Knight, Ken called Knight, only our men knew about the carriage and Yuki. So how did the cannibals manage to ambush it? Could it be just a coincidence? Ken couldn't help asking the obvious question. After Ken's question, the hall fell into silence. Visit. For a better user experience, isn't it obvious? Michael finally broke the silence and didn't even take his gaze away from his new shield. What is? Amaryl asked Michael. You have a spy among your men. Michael expected some kind of rebuke from one of them, especially from Amaryl, who seemed to love her people a little too much. However, they surprised Michael by staying silent. Michael had no idea how much they went through and suffered to get to this position. They were not naive people, not even Amaryl as Michael thought. Although everyone was thinking about the same deep down, hearing it out loud from Michael churned terrible feelings in their guts. We are running out of time. The note mentioned the cannibals would kill Yuki if they didn't see Dawn in 2 hours. Knight's voice stunned Amaryl. Then we all go swords blazing and kill every single piece of scum. I will reduce them to the ground if I have to. Calm down, Amaryl. Even if we send thousands of our elites, they would be sitting ducks once they entered the Withered Forests. General Knight is correct, Lady Amaryl. The Withered Forest is their domain. They hold absolute power there. Then what do you suggest? Let them eat Yuki while we stand here doing nothing? Do you think Dawn would sit still if he knew Yuki was in danger? Hearing their conversation, Michael's respect for these people reached a new height because they knew he was immune to the void array, yet none of them asked him to risk his life. Instead, they were trying to figure out a solution on their own. Dawn saved my life. So let me return the favor. Michael's calm words swept across the hall, immediately drawing their attention. Don't even think about it. You're our guest. We will not ask you to risk your life for us. Cataly appeared before Michael in an instant, shaking her head frantically. You are not asking me. It's my choice. Just show me where they are. Michael stepped towards the table, facing Knight. Unlike the others, Knight could see the confidence and sense the power radiating from Michael. The magical fluctuations around Ghost were crazy. Thus, Knight was confident Ghost could rescue Yuki and survive in the Withered Forest. Michael couldn't wait to get drenched in badass points and show what he was capable of to the people of Everlight. Besides, he might even get a chance to test his new shield. Cataly, go with him and show us everything happens. Michael almost wanted to kiss Knight. If they could see him in action, that would make the system rain badass points which he could use to get stronger before reaching the Shadow Realm. Will she be in danger? Asked Michael. No. They can't hurt me and I can't hurt them. But he'll be able to shadow you and let Knight see what I see, Cataly explained to Dawn as she prepared to teleport him to the Withered Forest. Visit. For a better user experience. Can you teleport near this Withered Forest? Knight nodded at Michael. Then I have some time to kill. Yet again, Michael took out a piece of paper and scribbled something before handing the list over to Ken. If you don't mind, get me these please. Ken looked at the list of items and frowned. He couldn't guess why he was asking for those items. Still, he nodded and teleported to his workshop along with Cataly. Everyone was confused. Time is of the essence, Kotar mumbled. You worry about finding the rat. He'll bring back Yuki. Michael stretched his arms and cracked his neck. What are you going to do? Amaryl took a deep breath and asked Michael. She could see there was no stopping him. Since Knight didn't try to stop Michael, she could only pray for his safe return. My lord, at that time, Ken and Cataly returned to the room carrying a few metal parts, including a black metal bracelet. Cool. Under their curious gazes, Michael took the metal bracelet, attached some tiny nuts and bolts, and merged them with the bracelet by heating up the metal bracelet using his alchemy flames. Then, Michael proceeded to place a space ring inside a hole created by the flame. Knight saw the shield on the table disappear into the ring. This should do it. Michael wore the bracelet around his left wrist so that he could use the hidden blade in his right wrist without any problem. What did you build, my lord? Ken curiously asked Michael. Nothing complex. Just a retractable shield. Michael clenched his left fist as he said. In a blink of an eye, the black shield materialized in his arm. By using the space ring, Michael cut the retracting time by half. It was more efficient than Draven's device. But, of course, Etheria had no space rings. Hence, they couldn't have built this device. Shall we go? Michael asked Cataly as she looked at everyone for their confirmation. Be safe. If something goes wrong, teleport back to Everlight, Knight warned both of them. I am really ashamed we are putting your life at risk. Amril looked sad, but Michael calmed her mind with a gentle smile and a pat on her shoulder. Visits. For a better user experience, believe me, I faced worse. Michael's words filled with confidence gave some strength to Amril. Again and again, the people of Everlight surprised Michael. They were so kind and pure-hearted. If it was his world, people would have jumped the gun to put his life in danger instead of risking theirs. However, the Everlight people really cared for Michael, whom they had just met. After Michael tested the shield device, he felt ready to hunt some skinless creatures. Now that the system had come online, he could use the teleportation scrolls. Hence, even if the skinless creatures proved troublesome, he could just activate the scrolls and escape. Of course, that would be the opposite of being a badass. Not that Michael wanted to run, but surviving to fight another was never a bad idea. We will not forget what you're doing for us, Ghost. Knight walked around the table and came before Michael. Knight clasped Michael's forearm, shaking it firmly. Don't miss the feast. Knight smiled. Not planning to. Michael nodded as Ken waved his hand. The very next moment, Michael saw a large mirror appearing in the room and saw the room in the mirror. Now we see everything Cataly sees. I am ready, Cataly said, looking at Michael as he adjusted the gadgets around his wrists. His wrists had so many devices now, including APD, Mark III grappling hook, hidden blades, and the retractable shield. As soon as he returned to the Dark Forest, he planned to optimize everything. It was time he upgraded the inventor skill to star level 5. Let's go. Michael nodded as everyone took deep breaths and only exhaled after Cataly and Michael vanished into thin air. The withered forest was large, dark, and primal. However, every single tree in the forest looked burnt and sick without a single leaf. Hence, the name Withered Forest. Long ago, its canopy was ruled by hickory, beech, and walnut, which provided just enough openings for light to pass down for a mishmash of plants to take advantage of the stony grounds below. At that moment, when the forest was filled with nothing but eerie silence, Cataly and Michael appeared at the border. We are here, Cataly whispered to Michael, who looked around the place without uttering a word. The forest was already spooky with dead trees and deadly silence. Yet, Mother Nature added an extra layer of spookiness by enveloping the forest with a thick mist and dark clouds above the forest in the sky. Michael couldn't even see what's in front of him in 5 meters due to the thick mist. In fact, he could barely see the trees in the forest. What's the plan? Asked Cataly. Get a good look at our targets? Michael raised his hand. Click. Cataly saw a grappling hook fired from his wrist to the tree branch above them. After the grappling hook coiled around the branch, Michael soared through the air and landed on the branch. Visits. For a better user experience, Michael saw several heat signatures on the ground via his thermal vision. The forest, the thermal vision, and standing atop a branch reminded him of the Earth and Predator movie. Why are you smiling? Cataly whispered after seeing the gentle smile on his face. Just some nostalgia. Michael jumped from one branch to another without making a sound. The only sound they heard was twigs cracking under the footsteps of the skinless creatures. Look, Michael pointed at the skinless creatures patrolling the forest, holding a white spear. When Michael looked closer, he realized the spear was made of human femurs. The skinless creature was oblivious to the fact he was being watched from above. So instead, the creature patrolled the borders like a good soldier. Michael could easily kill the creature, but he jumped from branch to branch, reckoning the place. The more he jumped around, the more he saw the layout of their camp. In addition, Michael also scanned the place with his environmental scanning. 60 cannibals, Michael told Cataly, looking at the skinless creatures walking around the forest. His gaze swept across the area and found the tent erupted in the center of their camp. A large group of cannibals gathered around a large cauldron, making weird sounds. When Michael looked at what was in the pot, he was nauseated. The cannibals were making some gooey red soup as Michael noticed tiny skulls and bones floating on the surface. "They are making human porridge," Cataly growled as Michael shushed her. "Sure." He then turned his gaze away from the boiling pot to the tent in the center. With the help of his thermal vision, he could see a figure tied to a chair inside the tent. "There is someone in the tent. Looks human, a girl maybe," Michael whispered to Cataly. "It must be Yuki," Cataly said. "Brother Knight, we might have located Yuki," Cataly whispered to Knight. At the same time, Michael looked at the two other figures inside the tent with the hostage. While Cataly was talking to Knight, Michael quickly took a spider from the system storage, dropping it down. He could try to poison the soup by flying above them and dropping the poison he brewed in the shadow realm into the pot. However, it would take some time, and there was a possibility the poison wouldn't work on these creatures. Besides, they were not powerful. The most powerful was at the core strengthening stage level 3. Instead of poisoning, Michael chose the most direct route. That option would get him the most amount of badass points. "What's next?" Cataly asked. "The latest understudies are on the website. Watch and learn, kid." With a smirk, Michael flew to the border again and landed on a tree branch above the first skinless creature they saw. The creature was looking around, and the moment it turned around, Michael swiftly landed behind the creature. "Nighty-night, Pulch." Cataly saw a blade retracting from his wrist through the creature's throat. The creature frantically squirmed, but Michael's grab around its neck soon stopped its movements. Since leaving the body might attract the other creatures, Michael took off from the ground with the dead creature in his hand. Michael put the body on the branch before jumping to another branch. This time, there were two creatures on the ground. Cataly thought Ghost would wait for the creatures to separate. But instead of waiting for them to part ways, Michael landed right between them. Not only the creatures but also Cataly was stunned. "Pulch, Pulch." Wow. Cataly barely blacked when she saw the two swords in Ghost's hands sticking through the creatures' heads. He killed them so fast without making a sound. Even Aurora's elites didn't have the finesse and quickness. Like before, Michael flew atop the branch and put the dead bodies before flying to another. It took Michael a few minutes to silently kill all the patrolling creatures. After killing them, Michael reached the center, where he saw the creatures growling and wailing. "We can't alert them. Otherwise, they might kill Yuki. Not if we kill them first," Michael smirked before leaping towards the tree near the tent. Still, to this moment, the cannibals were unaware of Michael's presence. They had arrays and traps placed for Dawn and anyone with battle energy. Unfortunately for them, Michael had no battle energy running in his veins but arch energy. Hence, none of the arrays were triggered by Michael. While they were excitedly waiting for the human porridge, Michael stalked them from above and picked them up one by one. Cataly was curious and afraid at the same time. She followed him behind, waiting for his next move. Unfortunately, the tent was surrounded by cannibals. Therefore, there was no way to get inside without being seen by the cannibals. "Are you curious to see what I am going to do next?" Michael whispered to Cataly with a smile. "Visits. For a better user experience, she nodded. "Then you have to wait a bit more." "What do you mean a little more?" Cataly whispered back but received no response from Michael. Instead, Michael controlled the spiders to get inside the tent. "It's time to crash the party." Michael turned his gaze toward the skinless creatures in the center. But before jumping down, Michael stretched his arms and unsheathed his sword. Since he wanted to test the shield, Michael only unsheathed one sword, not two. Afterward, Michael wasted no time but leaped down just a few inches away from the large pot with boiling human porridge. Grr! The creatures were startled by Michael's sudden appearance. However, they did not even have time to react as Michael kicked the pot toward them. Plop! The boiling porridge splashed on their bodies, making them scream in agony. Their screams echoed through the gloomy withered forest. He alerted them. Cataly was shocked. Ring of fire. Michael immediately cast the spell as a ring of fire shot out of him and burnt everything in the 5-meter radius. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a low-level queen worshipper. The reward is 10,000 experience points and 1,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a low-level queen worshipper. The reward is 10,000 experience points and 1,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for killing a low-level queen worshipper. The reward is 10,000 experience points and 1,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 15,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 12,000 badass points. Michael ignored all the notifications sounding in his mind and focused on the battle before him. The skinless creatures that remained closer to Michael stood no chance against the waves of hot red flames shooting out of Michael. Lightning dash. Michael did not remain still, thinking the fire would burn them all. Instead, he dashed at the creatures without giving them time to put up their defense. The creatures ran around frantically, screaming in pain, while many rolled on the ground to put out the fire on them. The smell of burning flesh mixed with the stench natural to the withered forest produced a nauseating smell. However, it couldn't stop Michael from cleaving the heads of the creatures with lightning-quick movement. Cataly saw only a blur among the skinless creatures, followed by a golden light trail. She heard the vague crackling of lightning every time she saw a head flying into the air. The creatures were simply too slow to even see Michael, let alone stop him. He just harvested heads like they were weeds. Cataly had a difficult time following his movements. While Michael was killing the skinless creatures, she tried to enter the tent but was stopped by an invisible force field. Gwar! Suddenly, the skinless creatures roared towards the sky as they began to grow in size. The next moment, they shocked everyone in Everlight by eating their fallen comrades. Then, they started to eat the dead ones, feasted on their entrails, and sucked the blood from the neck. The gory sight even stunned Michael. After they began to eat their fallen comrades, Michael noticed their cultivation stage go from the core strengthening stage level 1 to level 5. Fortunately, the most powerful one among the creatures was already killed by Michael. Visits. For a better user experience, even though they were powering up, they posed no threat to Michael. He treated the situation like badass points harvesting simulation. After they finished eating the others, Michael clenched his fist as the shield materialized over his forearm. Let's dance. Michael did not cast the lightning dash but remained firm, waiting for the creatures to attack him. Cataly, go inside the tent and see if Yuki is there. Cataly heard Amaril's voice in her head. I can't. The tent is protected by an array. Don't rush. She will come out. Michael's words surprised Cataly. Tell Amaril. I will come up with Yuki, Michael said, raising his hand towards a creature dashing at him. Before the creature could get to him, the bolt of lightning shot out from Michael's hand, piercing through its head. Meanwhile, back on Everlight, Night monitored each and every move of Ghost through Cataly's eyes. He is holding back. What? Amaril was shocked by Night's words. As far as she could see, Ghost massacred the cannibals without breaking a sweat. That was shocking enough already, yet Night told her that he was holding back. Who is he, General Night? Kotar asked, since he did not know anything about their new guest. Friend of His Majesty? Kotar couldn't help asking after seeing how they both dress in all black. Why isn't he rescuing Yuki? Don't rush. She will come out. Michael's words surprised Cataly. As soon as Amaril asked Night, she heard Ghost's calm voice. Can he hear us? Night shook his head, frowning. It seems like he has some tricks up his sleeves. Night, who forged himself in hundreds of battles, obviously knew Michael was holding back when he saw the battle in the mirror. It was pretty obvious to Night. Still, the way he killed them, the finesse, and the deadliness in each move reminded Knight of Dawn. However, the question in Knight's mind was why he was holding back and when he planned to rescue Yuki. Back on the battlefield, a skinless creature dashed at Michael, roaring in utter fury. It did not even have a weapon in its hand but just slashed at Michael, expecting to cut him in halves. Ding! Michael was waiting for the skinless creature to attack him, and when it did, he raised his shield, blocking its sharp claws. Despite the lightness of the shield, it didn't break when it blocked the blow. Not that Michael expected it to break. After all, it's a legendary item. Visits. For a better user experience, the creature went on a berserker as it kept banging the shield, trying to break it. However, the creature's punches did not even put a dent in the shield. Now my turn. The next time when the creature threw a punch, Michael deflected it with his shield, creating an opening. Then bomb! Michael hit the creature right in the jaw with his other hand. The creature was stunned as the others were dashing at him. Before the stunned creature could regain its senses, Michael sent his hidden blade through its eyes. Boom! 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 At that time, Michael's instincts kicked in as he felt the upcoming danger. Look out! Cataly shouted as Michael swiftly leaped into the air. While in the air, he saw a boulder flying past where he was standing. The creature finally began to cast spells, but they never uttered a word. He was still in the air when a wave of wind threw him off balance. The wind wave forced him to the ground. Are you okay? Cataly quickly came to his side and asked with visible concern in her eyes. The fun is just getting started. The rest of the creatures quickly surrounded Michael and began to move their hands in various shapes and forms as they were drawing in the air. Why don't we take Yuki and teleport away? She will come out, Michael calmly said, regardless of the 30 or so skinless creatures casting spells around him. You creatures did not learn a thing. Michael put his shield into his space ring and cracked his neck. On the other hand, the creatures created boulders, balls of fire, and mini tornadoes, just seconds away from sending everything toward Michael. Elemental manipulation, Michael had no doubts. They were manipulating the elements around him just like he could manipulate darkness and wind. But, of course, they seemed to have more control over the elements than Michael. Still, they made a mistake by standing within a 5-meter radius from him. Ring of fire. The fire engulfed everything within a 5-meter radius and raged on while pulsating waves of flames around him. Everything the creatures created using elemental manipulation vanished or fell on their own heads. Juraj! Irg! Jura! The creatures shrieked, trying to put out the fire. Some intelligent creatures attempted to manipulate the fire around them, only to fail. Michael's flames were powered up by the dark flames, and no one except Michael could control the dark flames. Visits. For the best no_vel__ng experience, congratulations to the host for leveling up. The current level is the Soul Refining Stage, level 5. Finally, after Michael killed all the skinless creatures around him by burning them alive, 2 creatures walked out of the tent, holding a young girl hostage. The young girl was still in her armor, but the creature had a rusted blade enveloped by a red mist against her throat. The red-haired girl gawked at the burning forest as the creatures roared at Michael. The previously gloomy, dark, silent forest was littered with dead bodies and engulfed by flames. Yuki! Cataly exclaimed. I don't speak your language, Michael said, folding his arm. Where is His Majesty? Yuki stuttered. Oh, you know their language? Michael tilted his head. Who are you? Yuki asked, ignoring his question. She had a corroded blade against her throat. Thus, she didn't feel like explaining things to a total stranger. You too. Cataly saw Michael turning his gaze towards the 2 creatures instead of talking to Yuki. Growl, if you understand me. Growling. The 2 of them let out an angry growl, indicating they could understand him. I'll give you a choice. Let her go, and I won't kill you. Michael looked at the dead bodies lying on the ground for a moment before looking at them again. Do anything else, you will join them, Ghost. Cataly came to his side. What are you doing? They would kill her. No, they won't. Michael didn't whisper but said loud enough for everyone to hear her. You're not going to kill her. So save us some time by dropping your blades. Don't struggle. I'll only make your death more painful. Yeah. They roared instead of letting her go. I will count to 3. If you didn't let her go by then I'd kill you. Michael stretched his arms and began to count. 1. Visit. For the best no_vel_experience. 2. The skinless creatures looked at each other, but before they could hear another word from Michael's mouth, their heads exploded. Time's up. What just happened? Amaryl stood there with her eyes wide open. She was bewildered. One moment Ghost was talking to the cannibals and the next moment, their heads exploded. Except for Knight, no one had clearly seen what just happened. In Knight's mind, he replayed the scene. After he counted 2, he raised his hands and fired 2 lightning bolts which went straight through the cannibals' heads. That was the glimpse of his full power. If he had fought without holding back, Amaryl and Kotar wouldn't have seen him. He wanted us to see him, Knight mumbled under his breath. Yuki, Amaryl shouted when she saw Yuki's bloody face. Her face was covered in the cannibal's blood. Wait, Knight saw Ghost stopping Cataly from getting close to Yuki. Tell Knight to meet us in a secured room. Why? Cataly questioned Michael. Just do it, Cataly, do what he says. Knight ordered Cataly. Kotar, go check on Arwen. Knight dismissed Kotar and when he was about to take a step, Knight stopped him. Keep your mouth shut about everything. Yes, General Knight. Kotar bowed before leaving the room. Afterward, Knight took Amaryl with him to one of the secret rooms in the castle. Meanwhile back in the withered forest, Michael approached Yuki. She was shivering as Michael stomped the ground, making the corroded blade fly into his hand. "I'll take this." The corroded blade disappeared into his system storage as Michael looked at Cataly. "We can go now." Cataly finally heaved a sigh of relief. "Cataly, come to room number 18. Cataly heard Knight's voice and then teleported Ghost and Yuki to room 18. In a second, Michael appeared in a brightly lit oval-shaped room in Everlight Castle. Knight and Amaryl were already waiting for them. "Yuki!" Amaryl tried to dash towards Yuki when he saw her but Knight grabbed her by the shoulder. "Visit. For the best no_experience. Wait. Knight shook his head, telling her not to take another step toward Yuki. Amaryl was confused but listened to Knight without uttering another word. "What?" When Amaryl turned her head, she saw the dark lines on Knight's forehead. "Knight?" she asked, confused by Knight's behavior. "Lady Amaryl. Who's he? What's happening here?" Yuki stuttered as tears gushed out of her eyes. Even Cataly had no idea what was going on here. Instead of explaining, Michael conjured his alchemy flames. Under their curious gazes, Michael threw in some herbs and ingredients he bought from the system into the alchemy fire. Yuki tried to walk toward Amaryl but an invisible force forced her to stay still. She couldn't move a muscle. "Are you going to tell what's happening or not?" Amaryl asked. "Wait, Amaryl. Everything will make sense in a few minutes," Michael answered as he continued to refine the ingredients. Even a few minutes felt so long to Amaryl. Finally, she saw a red pill emerge from his emerald green fire. "Take this." Michael's fire disappeared as he reached out the pill to Yuki. However, the girl frantically shook her head. "No." "Lady Amaryl." "General Knight, what is this?" she shouted. "Swallow it, Yuki." After sensing the seriousness in Knight's voice, Amaryl chose not to question him further until he explains everything to her. But one thing for sure, there was definitely something wrong with Yuki Zero. Otherwise, Knight wouldn't have asked Yuki to consume the unknown pill concocted by Ghost. "It's not gonna kill you, Yuki. On contrary, it will heal you." Michael stepped toward Yuki as she tried to walk away from him but she simply couldn't. Michael grabbed Yuki's face and squeezed her jaws, opening her mouth forcefully. Amaryl and Cataly were stunned by the change in Yuki's voice. It was an animalistic roar that shook the entire room. She squirmed and screamed against the invisible force as Knight frowned. Even a powerful being like him felt difficulty holding her down. "Yuki," Amaryl mumbled, looking at Yuki's eyes flicker in red. While Yuki was trying to release herself from Knight, Michael forcefully put the pill into her mouth and shut it close. Her muffled cry barely escaped her mouth. Meanwhile, the pill slowly melted into her mouth. After a few seconds, Michael let her go of her face and so did Knight. As soon as Michael let her go, she collapsed to her knees and screamed louder than any human possibly could. Visit. For the best no____ experience, her roar sent a chill running through Amaril's spine. Looking at Yuki scratching her own face, Amaril and Cataly stepped closer to Knight in fear. What's happening to her, Knight? Amaril asked Knight. She was being controlled by the cannibals. Michael answered Amaril instead. Meanwhile, Yuki began to cough up blood as dark as midnight and squirmed like a fish out of the water on the ground. The cannibals expected Dawn to rescue her. That's why they turned her into a human bomb. Michael's words stunned them. What? Cataly raised her brows. Knight? Amaril turned her gaze towards Knight as he nodded. I suspected Yuki's been controlled by the cannibals for quite some time. Someone was leaking information only we know to the cannibals. Dawn and I suspected this. Then, how did he know? Amaril looked at Ghost. I told him. Knight surprised Cataly and Amaril yet again. Knight possessed an ability to talk to people telepathically. When Knight shook Michael's hands, he told him everything about his suspicions to Michael. In return, Michael surprised Knight by responding to him telepathically using the system. The words they exchanged were never heard by Cataly or Amaril. Knight's suspicious, however, took a dark turn when Michael saw the skinless creatures making her drink something. Michael saw the whole thing thanks to the spider he sent inside the tent. As an alchemist, he immediately recognized the two potions they made Yuki drink. One was similar to his blood tonic but far less efficient and powerful. The other one temporarily made the creatures control Yuki. Unfortunately, the potion could only be used in Dawn's universe because the potion used battle energy. After screaming and squirming for a few more minutes, Yuki finally lost consciousness. Let her sleep for another 6 hours and she would be fine. Although if I were her, I'd stay away from training for a few weeks. Cataly waved her hand as she disappeared along with Yuki. We still have to find who gave her the mind-controlling potion, Knight said. No need. Another calm voice resonated in the room as Michael turned his head to see a young woman dressed in all white entering the room. She was not as pretty as Amaril, but she had a certain charm that Amaril completely lacked. Her silky smooth skin and her toned body indicated hours of the battle of training. As she walked gracefully, her raven black hair fluttered in the wind. Above everything, her slightly pointed ears clearly showed Michael her half-elf race. Aurora, Amaril finally let out a relieved smile seeing Aurora. You must be Ghost. It's an honor to meet you at last. Aurora greeted Michael with a gentle friendly smile. Visit. For the best no___ experience, erase your rat. With a flick of her wrist, she took out a severed head and threw it on the floor. Michael saw the head still has its eyes opened. If he was right, the person didn't even know how he died. You must be the White Death the soldiers were talking about, Michael greeted her back with a smile. If she was in his universe, the entire world would be afraid of her. Because she was at the peak of fusion stage. He could literally sense the energy radiating from her. Unlike Knight or Dawn, he was able to see her cultivation level. My foes call me that. You can call me Aurora, soon to be Aurora Dawn. Amaril giggled as Amaril wouldn't leave a chance to make Aurora blush no matter the situation. Thank you for rescuing Yuki, Ghost. Everlight is in your debt. Despite how powerful she was, she didn't act arrogant or cold like certain someone named Alicia or Selena. Enough of this. Amaril, take Ghost to quarters. I'll deal with everything else, Knight ordered Amaril after a quick look at the head rolling on the floor. Since Michael was tired and wanted to upgrade some of his skills, Michael didn't disagree with Knight. Yuki will be fine, right? Amaril asked Michael as he nodded. Thank you. Amaril grabbed Michael's hand and squeezed it. After leaving Knight and Aurora behind, Michael followed Amaril to his quarters. On his way, he met several friendly and funny dwarves, charming elves, and curious humans. Regardless of their race, they all seemed so happy without any worry. So who ruled this place before dawn? Michael asked. No one. I mean no one for thousands of years. And this place wasn't as lively and happy as this before dawn. He and Knight built this place from the scratch. Michael was genuinely surprised. Everlight seemed several times larger than Bradford. Ruling Bradford with no other races was no joke. let alone ruling a place as large and populated as Everlight. His instincts were yet again right on point. When Michael met Dawn, he got a major kingly vibe from like Dawn was born to rule. He had such dominance. Besides, it seemed to Michael that Dawn surrounded himself with loyal and powerful people such as Amaryl, Aurora, and Night. These people were no joke. If they traveled to his universe and regained their cultivation power, they could conquer Elon in an hour. Which brought Michael to his next question: how powerful their enemies would be. I wish you are from this universe. I could have set you up with some nice ladies here, Amaryl giggled, looking at the girls eyeing Ghost from the distance. You guys are taking the factum from another universe so chill, Michael couldn't help telling Amaryl. As a response to his words, Amaryl just chuckled. You are not the only otherworlder in Everlight Ghost visits. For the best no___ experience, Michael suddenly felt so curious about Everlight, and quite honestly he was shocked by the place. Deep down, Michael wanted to spend some time with them, learning about them and getting stronger with their help. Michael's quarter in Everlight Castle was an ample hall with an attached lavatory. It had been ages since Michael took a shower, and it took him several minutes to figure out how they built the hot shower. Apparently, Dawn owns multiple hotel chains that were fitted with shower facilities. According to Amaryl, people had been waiting for months to book a room in their hotels. Of course, Michael had plans to expand his restaurant chains and hotels. Still, for now, he just enjoyed the shower before hitting the comfy bed located in front of the windows through which Michael saw the angelic sight of Everlight. Since it was the harvesting time, the paddy fields were blossoming with golden paddy waiting to be harvested by the farmers. So Michael just removed his armor and everything and lay in the bed wearing only loose sweatpants. It's time to upgrade the inventor skill. Michael decided to upgrade his inventor skill. Although Michael did not know when the Shadow Realm would pull him back, he treated staying in Everlight like a vacation. He still had no clear idea why he was in Everlight physically instead of being in his soul form. But as far as he could tell, his future self planned everything. Host: Michael cultivation level, soul refining stage, level 6 experience points, 0/600, 000 badass points, 610,000 skills and spells. Wind Blast, LVL 6 responsive shield, LVL 8 environment scanning, LVL 6 ignitia, LVL 8 lightning dash, LVL 6 energy devour, LVL 2 soul eater, LVL 1 death range. LVL 3 Eyes of Darkness, normal. Can sense the cultivation level of others. Eyes of Darkness, Lucifer. Can sense the cultivation level of others. Can see through illusions. Cloud of Darkness, Lucifer. Weak. Willed enemies will lose their courage completely and surrender. Death range will be 50% more powerful. If activated in darkness, the host's cultivation level will be boosted 4 levels up regardless of the stage barrier. Wordless spellcaster, Lucifer. In full Lucifer form, the host just has to think of the spell to cast it. Techniques: Swords of Destiny 98% Mastery, Ring of Fire 92% Mastery. The latest ___ are on _. Website: Serpent Maggot 97% Mastery. Occupation: Core Disciple of Sunrise Sect, the Guardian of Sunrise Sect, Lord Lucifer of the Abyssal, the Dark Lord, King of Bradford. Status: Healthy goals: Control the world, rebuild the Order of Death. Utility function: Banker, LVL 5. Ratio: 1,000 gold coins, 40 badass points, Runic teleportation, X-ray vision. Also integrated with Eyes of Darkness, Wealth, 15 million gold. Special trait: 5-star Alchemist, 4-star Inventor. Subordinates: Gaia, Warrior, Loyalty level 100%. Raylene, 5-star Chef, Loyalty level 99%. Arya, Assassin, Loyalty level 86%. Heinberg, Warrior, Loyalty level 45%. Maxine, Warrior, Loyalty level 98%. Tiberius, Warrior, Loyalty level 55%. Sadie, Loyalty level 50%. Ricky, Loyalty level 98%. The latest __ are on _. Website: Titus, Loyalty level 60%. Optimus, Loyalty level 60%. The Silent Reaper crew, Pirates, Loyalty level 90%. Base of operation: Sunrise Sect, the Abyssal, the Crypt Kingdom of Bradford Familiars, Nightmare, Forest Dragon, Vidora, Three-Headed Hydra, Elemental Manipulation, Wind, 10% Mastery, Fire, 10% Mastery, Lightning 15% Mastery, Darkness 25%. Because of the Ghost Shield, Michael's darkness manipulation went from 20% to 25%. At a 5-star inventor level, he could build various types of new gadgets and weapons. System: upgrade the inventor's skill to the next level? The upgrade will cost the host 180,000 badass points. Does the host wish to upgrade? Yes, without a second thought, Michael confirmed. He was excited to build new gadgets and weapons as well as modify his Lucifer armor further. He already had several ideas to power up Big Bertha. The moment he got out of the Shadow Realm, he planned to visit Big Bertha and hunt down a few pirates in Big Bertha. After that, he couldn't wait to see the mortars in action. As usual, he felt acute pain in his brain while the system upgraded the skill to the next level. Then, all of a sudden, Michael's mind was flooded with new knowledge, new techniques, and a whole lot of blueprints to build new weapons. Coupled with his knowledge of firearms on Earth, the star level enabled him to build a more powerful, efficient version of almost every weapon known to man. However, Michael felt reluctant to build modern firearms because they could be easily used against him. The thing he loved the most about his new world was its medieval fantasy vibe. No matter what, he wouldn't ruin the setting. Hence, Michael planned to build new fantasy kinds of weapons using his knowledge of firearms. Besides, most modern firearms wouldn't stand a chance against cultivators and their spells. The only way to defeat them would be to build firearms powered that take advantage of arch and celestial energy. After upgrading and going through his status window once more, Michael felt his eyes closing up. He felt so exhausted. Instead of fighting off the sleepiness, Michael closed the system window and closed his eyes. Only an hour passed when someone knocked on Michael's door. But Michael was deep in sleep as he didn't even hear someone knocking on the door. The one who knocked on the door finally stopped knocking after a few knocks and decided to open the door. "Ghost, you there?" Surprisingly, it was Amaryl who entered the room and saw Michael under the blanket sleeping peacefully. "Should I wake him up?" Michael questioned herself for a few moments until she ultimately decided to wake him up. "Hello." She gently tapped Michael's shoulder. "Visits. For a better user experience, hey, wake up. The feast is ready." Her gentle tapping took a turn to a force one. Still, Michael didn't even move. Suddenly she just grinned devilishly, licked her palm, and raised her hand to slap him on the shoulder. But when she was just a few inches away from him, he grabbed her hand. Her body became stiff as Michael let her hands go. "It's rude to hit a sleeping person, Amaryl." Michael slowly opened his eyes. "It's rude to sleep when everyone is waiting for you." She ruffled Michael's head as he slowly woke up. He almost forgot he wore no shirt to cover his body, but luckily, the blanket covered his body instead. "Take a bath and come." Amaryl smiled and walked out of the room. After battles, blood, and planning, it felt good to just sit back and relax. There was no one gunning for his life in Dawn's universe. Michael even wished there was a way for him to come to Everlight often and spend some time without any worries. Everlight had such a magical effect on him. He heard his stomach growling. After quickly making his bed, Michael went inside the lavatory to take a quick bath. Although he took a bath earlier, he went to take another one because of the hint of blood smell coming off of him, courtesy of the skinless creatures he killed. When Michael entered the feast hall following a maid left by Amaryl, he was welcomed by the sweet aroma of voluptuous food and apple cinnamon candles. The feast hall was almost the size of the Great Hall of Mazeroth. It was sparkling with candlelight and the great chandeliers hanging from the silver ceiling. Numerous long oak tables were placed and laid with glittering golden plates and goblets. There were hundreds of foods on the table and Michael recognized only a few of them, such as lamb chops, steak, potatoes, meat pies, sandwiches, puddings, tarts, eclairs, and jams. At the top of the hall was another long table where the Dawn, Night, and a few other new faces were sitting. While the maids and servants were fixing the meal, Michael could see the dwarves already chugging down mugs of ale like water. They didn't stop until Amaryl slapped some of them on the head. Despite her status, she was running around with trays asking everyone what they wanted and serving them delicious appetizers. He could smell the steam coming off of the meat. The aroma of the brown sugar was music to his soul. When Michael entered the room, almost every single one in the room turned their heads to the doorway and stared at him. For a few moments, the room was enveloped in awkward silence. The next moment, however, the entire hall erupted into cheers. They gave Michael a standing ovation as he walked toward Dawn and Night. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 5,000 badass points. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully being a badass. The reward is 2,000 badass points. Michael was too surprised by their gesture. The increasing badass points elevated his mood a couple of times. While he approached Dawn's table, Night pointed to the empty chair next to Dawn. As soon as Michael sat beside Dawn, the citizens stopped cheering and returned to their seats. Most of them were stunned to see the resemblance between Michael and Dawn, especially how they dressed. Michael's robes were pure black with no colors whatsoever, while Dawn's armor had silver linings and a hood to cover his head. I heard what you did, thank you. When Michael saw beside him, Dawn thanked him. You did save my life back there. Michael smiled, unlike Dawn, who had no expression on his face. Quickly a girl with bunny ears approached the table to refill Michael's empty glass with wine. I don't drink booze. Can you give me water or any kind of fruit juice? Amaryl, who came to serve Michael, was stunned by his words. She just gawked at Dawn and Michael for a moment. You're just like him. Are you related to him or something? Michael noticed the water in Dawn's glass and realized Amaryl's words. To be honest, Michael shared the exact thought as Amaryl. The latest underscores are on website. He wondered if he and Dawn had some kind of connection. Let's eat first. Then we will talk about what you're looking for. Dawn ignored Amaryl's question and said to Michael in a low-pitched voice. For some reason, Michael felt Dawn was aware of what he was looking for in the key. But for now, Michael decided to enjoy the feast with the friendly people of Everlight. After all, the dishes in front of him looked delicious. How's the meal? Amaryl didn't sit beside them but continued to serve everyone. She ran around the hall, making everyone eat more than their stomachs could bear. Her hospitality didn't spare even Michael. After eating almost 20 different delicious dishes, Michael was stuffed. It was delicious, Michael said, making Amaryl grin widely. If Michael had to guess, whoever cooked the meals must be at a 6-star chef level because the meals were more delicious than Raylene's cooking. After Michael filled the little bit of emptiness in his stomach with hot water, Cataly appeared in the hall. The usual place? She asked Amaryl. Dawn? Amaryl pouted and looked at Dawn with puppy eyes. Why not? Thank you. She dashed at Dawn and hugged him tightly. Michael was confused, wondering what was going on, but soon he received his answer when Cataly teleported him to another place. In a blink of an eye, Michael and everyone previously sat behind the long oak table that appeared under a big apple tree on a small hill. Michael was immediately captivated by the most beautiful scenery in front of him. He could see the entire Everlight from up here as well as the big lake across the fields. As the light drained away, there was barely enough even for shadows. Whether one liked it or not, the darkness arrived and blanketed everything. Even the stars and moon cowered behind a dense layer of cloud in the sky, giving the air a cold tincture. Everlight's beauty came from its nature. Rather than destroying nature to build things, the citizens of Everlight seemed to have learned to coexist with nature. Hence, there were so many trees that decorated the kingdom. These trees were crazy silhouettes against the newly silver sky, its blue hue almost gone until dawn. Their branches swayed in the wind, creaking into the gusting air. Then, finally, the first sound of the nocturnal animals arrived, a hoot of an owl, a rabbit taking cover in the hedgerow. The lake in the distance mirrored the cloudy sky and the moon peeking through the clouds as the trees had hidden their bold greens. Finally, dusk was the time to move into the shadowless world. Michael just stared at the sight before him without batting an eye. He was simply speechless. At that moment, Michael had a fire in his heart to settle somewhere he would feel like what he feels right now. Pretty, isn't it? Knight asked as he came beside him with Dawn. Michael nodded, standing between Dawn and Knight. The trio stared at the scenery together. You guys created a beautiful place. Glad I could be of help. Don't let the serenity fool you, Ghost, Knight said as Michael turned his head towards Knight. Every day is a battle to keep this place as it is. I don't know when I will be pulled back to my universe. But until then, let me know if you need anything. Michael patted Knight on the shoulder. Visits. For the best understanding experience, you've already done enough for us, Ghost. Now tell us what we can do to help you? Dawn asked Michael. You boys get back here when you're done with boy talks, Amaryl shouted from behind. Michael looked over his shoulder to see Amaryl, Aurora, and Cataly sitting under the apple tree and picking up a few apples to snack on. I am looking for something called the key. Apparently, the Queen is also looking for it. The Queen, huh? That's what you call her, exclaimed Knight. What do you call her? Athrea. That's her real name, Knight answered Michael. Couple of years ago, we didn't even know she existed. I just knew about her a few hours ago, Michael sighed. Where did you hear from her? Those cannibals aren't the very talkative type. To be honest, guys, this isn't the first universe I visited. Before coming here, I went to 2 other universes. I was fortunate to meet someone who knows a lot more about the Queen. Of course, Michael couldn't say he first heard about the Queen from the system when he killed the skinless creatures. Hence, Michael altered the truth a bit. Since Michael felt no need to hide from Knight and Dawn about traveling to other universes, he told them about it. Hunter. As soon as Michael heard the name from Knight's mouth, Michael raised his brows. You know him? Yeah. One tough son of a bitch, isn't he? Knight chuckled. The only one who killed Athrea's soul piece. Finally, Dawn opened his mouth, and by the tone of his voice, Michael could tell Dawn was surprised and shocked by Hunter. And crazy enough to try to absorb her soul piece. Knight burst into laughter, but just like Dawn, he too seemed startled by Hunter's feat. When and where did you guys meet him? Shadow Realm. It was unfortunate we were just there for a couple of minutes and didn't have the chance to meet that crazy son of a bitch, Knight sighed. But he seemed to have met you. Might be a different timeline. Dawn's words made sense to Michael. Hunter, Draven, Michael, Dawn, and Knight traveled to other universes in different timelines. So Michael felt he might meet some of them in the future in his own universe. When we went to his universe, we didn't meet him, Knight explained. But we all seemed to share a common enemy, didn't we? The latest underscores are on website. Michael nodded. What do you guys know about her? Damn it, I have enough enemies and problems as it is. Now I have to deal with her. Give me a break. You don't have to worry about her. The other soul pieces cannot do anything until we defeat her here. Maybe scream and pull some illusions if you come across them. Otherwise, they will remain dormant. Finally, Michael received some good news from Knight. What do you mean? No one knows her origins, but she belonged to this universe when she was alive. So the main part of her soul is here somewhere in this world. Until we wake it up and defeat it, the others will not and cannot do anything. We are not in a rush to face her. Just like you, we already have enough enemies. That's good news, sort of. Have you met one of her generals? Not yet, but I have a feeling we will soon, Knight said. So if her soul is in pieces, that means someone else broke her. Am I right? After connecting the dots, Michael concluded that someone else had battled Athrea. The guardian gods before us, said Dawn as usual without showing any emotion. According to the ancient scripts left by the civilization before us, Athrea was a goddess of war. Something made her go to the dark side. That's all we know. We have no records of the one who defeated her and broke her into pieces. Knight exhaled and continued, imagine how powerful she must have been when she was whole. Imagine how powerful the god who defeated her must be. Michael couldn't even fathom the power of the god who defeated Athrea. A single general created by Athrea was powerful enough to destroy Michael's words in a few hours. But thanks to Knight's information, Michael calmed down as he had no need to worry about Athrea until Dawn dealt with the soul piece in his world. Fortunately, Michael had a feeling Dawn was more than capable of destroying her soul piece. To be honest, Michael decided not to worry about Athrea until he first dealt with the Skyhall and the Great Eight clans. There was no point in worrying about her and the Hydra at this point in time. So what about the key? You know anything about it? Unfortunately, Knight shook his head. No idea, but if the Shadow Realm brought you here, it must have its own reason. Who knows, maybe you got what it intended for you too. Michael looked around Everlight and took a deep breath. Maybe I did. Surprisingly, Michael did not feel disappointed. Instead, he felt satisfied. By coming to Dawn's universe, Michael received a legendary item, learned more about the Queen, and made some powerful friends. Moreover, he felt relaxed. It had been so long since he loosened up a bit and enjoyed the calmness. Enough about Athrea and her fanatics. Tell me about yourself and your world, Ghost. Hey, we need to hear that too. Ghost, come here, Amaryl shouted from behind as Michael smiled. Visits. For a better user experience, let's go. Dawn turned around, walked towards Amaryl, and sat beside Aurora, leaning back on the tree. I am sorry, Ghost, Knight said after lying on the ground. Why? She is going to ask you so many questions. Shut up, Knight. Don't believe him, Ghost. It's okay. Michael smiled. But let me ask you a question first. Since they were all here, Michael decided to ask the question that had been nagging his brain since he arrived at Everlight. Why do you guys trust me so much? You shared so much with me when you just met me a few hours ago. What makes you think I'm so trustable? Asked Michael. We trust you because we trust guys, Amaryl giggled. Besides, you came from another world. What reason might you have to harm us? Michael nodded. Speaking of guys, where is she? Aurora asked, resting her head on Dawn's shoulder. She's with Leah. I wish I could eat some of these. Suddenly Catelli looked at the apple in Michael's hand and sighed. Just wait a few more months, Cat. We will find you a suitable body, Knight said as Amaryl rolled her eyes. This time, try to bring a body of a young girl instead of an old man's body. As soon as Amaryl mocked Knight, Michael was taken aback by surprise. The first thing I am going to do tomorrow is dispose of that body, Knight growled. Well, if you don't mind, can I take a look at the body? Amaryl frowned. Why? Amaryl couldn't think of a reason why Ghost might want to take a look at an empty body void of soul. The latest underscores are on website. Because I have a demon butler and he needs a physical body. You have a demon for a butler? Amaryl was stunned. Michael looked at Knight curiously, thinking whether they have demons or not in their world. I don't think we have demons in this world. At least we haven't come across one yet, Knight chuckled. I have one, but he's in an ethereal form, just like me, huh? Catelli asked Michael. Catelli, bring the body here. We have no need for it anyway, Knight immediately ordered Catelli. Although Catelli could inhabit the body to take physical form, they preferred to get her a physical body suitable for her gender and age. Okie dokie, Catelli disappeared from their sight as Amaryl raised another question. Do you miss your family, Ghost? I would have if I had one, Michael's calm words shocked Amaryl. Everyone turned their gazes at Michael. I am so sorry. You poor thing, can I ask what happened to them? Amaryl, Knight growled, but Michael waved high hand, wordlessly telling Knight that he didn't mind. Only thing I know about them is they throw me away willingly. Dawn, who was looking at the horizon, turned his gaze towards Michael. He could see the sadness and pain within Ghost's eyes. Even though Ghost tried to hide it, Dawn could see it. It felt to Dawn like he was looking at himself in the mirror. Michael, on the other hand, noticed the sadness emerging in Amaryl's eyes. But I have people who care about me more than my family ever did. Michael emphasized the word family. I am glad to hear that. Do that people include a young girl or girls? Again, I am sorry you have to sit here and take her way into someone's personal life questions. Do you mind, Ghost? Amaryl stuck her tongue out at Knight and asked Ghost. The latter just shook his head and didn't get annoyed by Amaryl because Ghost liked Amaryl. Unlike the elves Michael met in his world, she seemed to be a quirky, funny, caring elf. Visits. For the best no_underscore experience. See Knight, he doesn't mind. Amaryl threw an apple aiming at Knight's head and continued questioning Ghost. Yeah, I have one. And in fact, Michael raised his finger, showing the engagement ring on his finger. You're married? Wait, no, engaged? Michael nodded. Wonderful. I wish I had met her. Suddenly Amaryl burst into a chuckle. Something funny? Aurora asked. I just thought about what she would be called after marrying him. Lady Ghost, What's up with that name anyway? Asked Amaryl laughing. I don't exist, yet I exist. You won't know me until you meet me, and you won't live to tell the tale. Hence, Ghost, you are an assassin, aren't you? As soon as Michael uttered these words, Knight asked. But the way you fought and moved. You mixed warrior style into your combat, but the way of the assassins is still there. That's your base. I saw that. Knight's words showed Michael the experience Knight had in battle. Just by looking at how he fought, Knight guessed Michael's origin as the assassin. I am back. As they were talking, Catelyn appeared again. Beside her, there was a glass casket with a body inside. Except for the lower body parts, which were covered by a white cloth, the rest was naked. The body belonged to a half-elf in his late teens, maybe 29 or 28. His dark brown hair reached his shoulder. The body was tall and extremely muscular, but not like a bodybuilder. The body was several inches taller than Michael himself. System, can I give this body to Azazel? Yes. But this body does not belong to the host's world. So the system would require 50,000 badass points to adjust the body to fit Azazel's soul. What about transportation? How do I bring the body from Don's universe to mine? The badass points weren't Michael's concern. Rather, he worried about how to take the body with him. Usually, anything that weighed more than 30 kilograms and cannot be lifted by a normal human being couldn't be put into the system storage or any space rings. Since the body does not have a soul, it's basically just a shell. The host can cut them into pieces and store them in the system storage. After reaching your universe, you can merge the parts together. Of course, the system would require 20,000 badass points to do so. No shit, Michael chuckled inside. He expected it because the system would do basically nothing without badass points. Finally, Michael heaved a sigh of relief and crossed one task off his to-do list. Recently, he felt like he had so many things to do. Visits. For a better user experience, he had to help Gaia take over her kingdom and take revenge on her family, find Gaia's mother, assassinate Tanulia, get rid of guardians and vampires, fight the 8 great clans, save sect leader Claire's mother, and reduce Thusia kingdom to ashes. These were just a few things on his list. At least with the body, he had one less thing to do. Michael stood up from the grassy ground and walked towards the glass casket. We brought it from an ancient ruin. It's really amazing how the body remained in this condition for thousands of years. He didn't seem like he died of old age. Neither there any cuts nor wounds in his body. After hearing Knight, Michael guessed it was either someone had created the body or sucked the soul out of it. Just like Michael did to Wilkes. It's only collecting dust in our storage. If you have a way to take it with you, feel free, Knight said. How is he going to do that? It's not a shield to put it inside a space ring, Amaryl questioned Knight. Unless his space ring works differently from ours, Aurora commented. Under their curious gazes, Michael placed his hand on the glass. Can you open it? Catelyn nodded, waving her hand as the glass between them slowly vanished. What are you planning? Amaryl asked but quickly closed her mouth when she saw Ghost unsheathing his swords. When you have a big problem, cut it into smaller pieces, Michael calmly said before slashing the body with his 2 swords. He moved so quickly that Amaryl could only see a blur. When he stopped cutting, the body remained intact. At least for a few moments. Then, the body crumbled onto the ground, quickly disappearing from the ground. Problem solved. For a few moments, everyone was stunned. They couldn't help wondering how Ghost planned to piece together the body. Thank you for the body, Michael smiled, breaking the silence. Well, now I don't have to listen to the dwarves saying I should take the body. Catelyn was pleased to see the body disappearing from the casket. Hence, she laughed happily. With a flick of his wrist, Michael took out a parchment from his space ring. Before I forget, take this. Michael gave the parchment to Knight. Visit. For a better user experience, this contains the procedure, ingredients, and the formula to create an antiserum for corroded blade and potion to wake anyone from their coma state. This is the least I can do for what you've done to me. Michael felt truly grateful towards them. They did not only give him a legendary shield, but they also gave a body to Azazel. Although it seemed like a normal body, Michael felt immense power from the body. If his gut feeling was right, the body would be worth millions. Moreover, the way they treated Michael earned them his respect and love. They treated him like one of their own and calmed his mind and soul, which helped Michael more than anyone would expect. At that time, Michael just wished he could travel to other universes more often, especially to Everlight. Unfortunately, he began to feel the sucking force. Dawn surprised Michael by looking at the sky. "It seems like your time in this world is up. It's been some years since I felt this force." A gentle smile indicated sorrow and gloom on Knight's face. "Dawn, can't you stop it?" Amril grabbed Michael's hands tightly. "Even if I can, I want Amril. He has to return to his own world," said Dawn as the others took a deep breath and prepared to send off Michael. "If fate permits, we will meet again, Amril." Michael squeezed Amril's shoulder with a smile. "Take this." Dawn took out a black card just like the one Hunter gave Michael from his space ring. "I think you already know how this works," Knight said as Michael nodded. These two obviously had more secrets than they let him know. But, of course, Michael did not blame them as he had his own secrets too. As seconds passed, Michael felt the sucking force getting stronger and stronger. Finally, his feet almost started to rise from the ground. Remember Ghost? Do not judge anyone before knowing the full story. Michael did not understand the reason behind Dawn's words. It was sudden and unexpected. But Michael had no time to ask Dawn regarding his words as he was pulled upwards by the suction force. "I hope we meet again, Ghost." Knight waved with a smile, and so did Aurora and Amril. To Michael's surprise, Amril even shed some tears for him. "Man, I wish I could stay for a couple of days here." While floating in the sky, Michael looked at the beauty of Everlight and sighed. Then the host should earn more badass points. The system almost sounded like it was yelling at Michael. Unfortunately, this is not the time for a vacation system. "I still have so much to do." Michael sighed inside and waved back at them. The very next moment, the suction force pulled back Michael from Everlight. A split second before Everlight disappeared from his sight, Michael saw a ghostly figure of a dark figure with thousands of arms hovering over Everlight. "The Queen," Michael mumbled as everything around him turned pitch black. Finally, his tour to other universes came to an end. Visits. For the best no_vel_id_ng experience, only one thing remained in the Shadow Realm, the key. That was Michael's last destination before returning to the southern continent. However, he had no idea of the surprise waiting for him at the end of his journey in Shadow Realm. Like gum from someone's mouth, the Shadow Realm spat out Michael. Bang! Michael hit the wall beside Sabrina with enough force to break his shoulder bone. "Ghost!" Sabrina was startled. One moment Ghost was with her, and the next he came flying from the opposite side. She didn't fail to hear the sickening crunching sound from his shoulder. His entire right arm looked crooked, but soon, it started to mend itself to its normal state. "What just happened?" Sabrina whispered frantically, looking around for the monster. But luckily she heard no footsteps. Michael's stomach growled as everything turned blurry. Arg! Michael gritted his teeth, enduring the pain of a broken shoulder. Thanks to the APD, the healing potion had already started to mend his arm. He grabbed the wall with his left hand and slowly picked himself from the ground. While Sabrina was looking at him bewildered, Michael took deep breaths. "The monster. It's gone." Sabrina heaved a sigh of relief when she looked around the corner. "Let's go." Michael didn't even take a rest but walked around the corner to continue their journey. He had a feeling the journey was coming to an end. "What the hell was that?" Sabrina asked Michael. There was definitely something happened in a split second, and she wanted an explanation. "What do you mean, what just happened?" "I just got hit by the monster," Michael lied. "1 second I was with you, and the next, some invisible force threw me around like a rag doll." Michael stretched his back while lying to her. "We should get the hell out of here before that monster comes," Michael exclaimed. He did not need to tell Sabrina that the monster was dead when they traveled to another universe. Although the people in his world believed in other realms and other worlds, they had no idea there were other universes out there. Even the Shadow Realm was a myth to them, let alone the other universes. Michael liked to keep it that way. The last thing Michael wanted was Noah to start investigating the Shadow Realm and the other universes. Sabrina believed Ghost because his words made sense. After coming out of Everlight, Michael did not speak much. Instead, his brain replayed Don's last words to him, and Michael tried to make sense of those words. What did he mean by that? Michael questioned himself. Luckily for Michael, Hunter cleaned up most of the skinless creatures in the Shadow Realm. Thus, they came across no creatures. Eventually, after walking for another hour, the rune on Sabrina's hand glowed brighter than usual and let out a low-pitched whistling sound. Ghost. Sabrina raised her hand to see the rune pulsing like a heart. Visit. For a better user experience, I think we are close to the key, Michael said. Instead of moving forward, Michael quickly sent his drones into the two branching ways in front of them. However, the drones refused to enter the paths as though an invisible shield prevented them from flying through. What should we do? Sabrina asked. What else can we do? Michael raised her hand toward the path and noticed the rune glowing brighter when he pointed her hand towards the right path. Michael did not like walking on an unknown path. Even the system let him down, saying its level is too low to break the energy shield. It was definitely a risk, but Michael had no choice. According to what he learned in Etheria, the key might let the Queen open portals to other universes. Michael connected the dots and concluded that something was stopping the Queen from traveling to other universes. However, the key was something that could remedy the situation in her favor. If Michael could take the key for himself, he could stop a future threat successfully. What's stopping the Queen from getting the key? Michael asked himself. She definitely had minions roaming around the place. So if the key was here, she would have tried to take the key for herself. But something told Michael she didn't get the key yet. According to Hunter, he forgot what happened except killing the skinless creatures in the Shadow Realm. Michael even began to question whether the key was still here or not. Yet, despite everything, he was glad he came to the Shadow Realm. Otherwise, he couldn't have received the Ghost Shield, a physical body for Azazel, and met new people, including his fellow Earthman, Hunter Blade. While Michael was recalling his journey from the beginning from the island to getting out of Everlight, he felt the air suddenly get chillier. Ghost. Sabrina also sensed the change in the air. Both of them stopped to look around the place. As far as they could see, there was nothing but dark walls around them. Michael used his thermal vision to ensure no one was around them and saw nothing. Let's keep our guards up. Michael and Sabrina cautiously took steps forward, expecting trouble any second. The surroundings turned darker and gloomier than usual. The more they walked, the chiller the air became. At one point, Michael conjured his alchemy flames to keep their bodies warm. But, because Michael was expecting trouble, he did not dare to fly and waste his arch energy. An hour later, the rune on Sabrina's light started to radiate a dim emerald green light. Again, they saw no branching ways but a dead end before them. There's no way, Sabrina whispered, standing close to Michael's alchemy flames. The key must be somewhere here. Michael once again looked around to find any clues or something out of place. Visit. For the best no_vil_g experience, suddenly a strong gust of wind put out Michael's alchemy flames. But although they lost the green flames, Sabrina's rune glowed bright enough to light the gloomy place. What was that? Sabrina frantically looked around until she noticed a blood stain on the ground several meters ahead. When she turned her head to inform Ghost, she noticed his gaze already locked onto the blood stain. He slowly made his way towards the blood stain. It's still warm, Michael squatted, touched the blood and informed Sabrina. What does it mean? Sabrina clenched her sword tight while frantically looking around. She kept waving her hand as though her hand was a torchlight. I have a bad feeling about this, Michael said to himself, looking at the large blood stain on the ground. Michael was about to stand up when the place suddenly turned red, like it was lit with several crimson red lights. Cring. Michael's neck hair stood up, sensing the sudden danger, but he was too late to react. Several belts made of energy coiled around Michael and prevented him from moving his arms. Michael squirmed against the belts only to fail. They were too strong. Even after using all his strength, He couldn't even move his arms an inch. At that time, several figures appeared out of thin air and surrounded them. Ghost! Sabrina tried to dash at Michael. Boom. A strong gust of wind blasted Sabrina to the wall behind her. She collapsed onto the wall and fell, coughing up blood. The sword in her hand slipped out due to the clash. Michael squirmed against the belts while trying to summon the system. Damn it, system. Don't go offline now. Michael screamed inside his mind, trying to summon the system. On the other hand, more and more cloaked figures appeared out of thin air and encircled Michael and Sabrina. The host doesn't have enough badass points to break the cursed chains. The system's words made Michael's heart skip a beat. Sabrina struggled to pick herself from the ground, and when she finally did, a cloaked figure grabbed her by her hair. She tried to fight, but the cloaked figure simply swatted the sword off her hand. Visit. For a better user experience, every single cloaked figure radiated the energy of a soul refiner, and the man who grabbed Sabrina was at the fusion stage level. The cloaked figure dragged her by the hair without mercy and threw her against the wall beside Michael. Michael counted 11 cloaked figures. One was at the fusion stage, and the rest were all at the soul refining stage. There was no way Michael could defeat them. Arg! Michael growled as he used every bit of strength in his body to break the strings around him. Even if he could break them, he didn't know how to escape the place. As he growled, a cloaked figure dashed at Michael and banged his head against the wall. Michael's forehead split open as the blood gushed out. As a result, his vision blurred. Not only the strings prevented Michael from moving his limbs, but they also stopped him from casting spells. In other words, the strings blocked the arch energy flow in his body, thus making him powerless. No matter how hard Michael squirmed, he simply couldn't break the strings. On the other hand, the cloaked figure that threw Sabrina against the wall repeatedly kicked her in the gut until she began coughing more blood. Michael was not in a better state as he got his head banged against the wall by the cloaked figure behind him. Nevertheless, the APD kept injecting him with healing potions into his bloodstream, which helped Michael from losing consciousness. Unfortunately, Sabrina had no APD. The dark cloaked figure kicked her until she stopped twitching. Leave her alone. Michael stuttered. Tricky little bugger. Michael heard the deep, beastly voice coming from the dark figure at the fusion stage level. In a blink of an eye, the dark figure appeared before Michael and grabbed Michael's wrist. Michael growled in pain as the dark figure crushed his wrist, destroying the APD. Beg for your life. The figure ran his finger across Michael's bloody face. Why don't you remove these strings first? Michael snarled, showing no signs of fear in his eyes. Bloodsucker. Michael spat blood onto the figure's face and roared like a wounded beast. The dark figure hid his face with the dark cloak, but despite Michael's blurry vision, he saw the two long fangs sticking out of his mouth. We prefer the term Nightwalkers. As the dark figure exclaimed, the figures slowly removed their cloaks, revealing their fangs and faces. Michael couldn't even guess how they managed to enter the Shadow Realm. He did not even sense them despite all of his countermeasures. One thing was sure to Michael: he was in for a deadly ride. The latest episodes are on website. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.